we are live. So for those who, for some reason or the other, you are not able to make the class, you can always go back to the YouTube channel and go through it. Okay, so it's not the advantage of being here in class is that you can interact with people here. You guys, you can ask questions. You can be here real time. Okay, so that's just the advantage of being here. So I would like to come to encourage you guys. I know it's not easy. Studying is not easy. I study hard. It's not easy. People think, oh, Emmanuel, you are very good. It's not easy, to study. But each time I learn, there is some confidence. When you're able to learn, it gives you confidence in your trade. So the Bible says you should show yourself, a workman that don't need to be ashamed of what you are doing. So that is, for me, why we're doing what we're doing. So whether you get an A or a B or a C, I'd rather have you know the word of God and put it into practice. So today, what we're going to do today is going to be very exciting, just like every other day. Today is going to be very, very, very exciting. We're going to be looking at from Jerusalem to the ends of the earth. How did the church spread? I know we've read Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. We are almost finishing. By Friday, I know that what I posted earlier on states that we're going to be starting the the Revelation class on Thursday. But I would like to ask, please, if you don't mind, if you can please allow us to do it on Friday. The reason is that there is this national LG, state LG meeting that was called, and I did not think it through. I would have told you guys earlier on, even though we fixed the appointment first, but I have something I needed to present there, so that's why I want to be there. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to disable your audio. You won't be able to you won't be able to unmute yourself. So I'll just let you know. Because if you do that, it will bring you your picture or something back and forth. So the way Zoom works, Zoom focuses on who is talking, the tools, so that it will only focus on my screen. So afterwards, when there's Q&A, then I will allow you to unmute yourself. So I'm really excited that we can learn, and we can learn all these things. What I'm going to do today is I'm not going to be giving you everything. I'm only going to be picking a few things I feel you might find interesting even as you read. Now, this is where we're going to start. Excuse me. I've been preaching every day, recording sermons, so my voice is almost going. Everything. So when you look at the Bible is a mixture of 66 books, right? We have the Old Testament, which we have done last year. Some of you who have not done the Old Testament, you can still do it. Just request. Then I'll send you all the documents. You go through it. Then you write your exams. But many people who are here right now have taken the Old Testament survey. So now we are looking at the New Testament survey. These books were not like this before. They were not together like this before. It was over time that they now come to be the way they are. God willing, as a bonus class, I'm going to do a class on how we got the Bible, the transmission of the Bible, right from the Hebrew down to the modern day translation that you have right now. Now, focusing on the New Testament, it's all about the covenant. You have the Old Covenant and the New Covenant. Now, the New Testament is made up of 27 books, as you already know. Now, the books, the way they are arranged, they are not arranged chronologically. So you need to know that first. They are not arranged chronologically in the way you think chronology. The way they are arranged, I'm going to let you know. First is the Gospels. Okay, let's just go ahead and focus on that. First is the Gospel. The Gospel is what you have here: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Now we're going to talk about which one comes first. It's a debate that we can keep debating and debating and debating. But that seems to be the introduction of the covenant. Jesus Christ came to introduce the covenant, came to bring forth the covenant. But that covenant didn't actually start until after Jesus Christ had died, was buried, resurrected, and he went to go and sit in heaven. And that is when, so anybody who, who died before Jesus' resurrection died under the old covenant. So you can say that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, a good part of it is actually of the old covenant. And that's why we say that John the Baptist is the last prophet of the old covenant. Now, the way they arrange Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John is not necessarily the way they come. Now, scholars, when I say scholars, who have taken time to study this thing, most scholars tend to agree that Mark is the first gospel written down. Now, it doesn't matter, it won't take you to heaven if you know, but just for you to know that Mark was the first gospel written down, followed by, by Matthew, and then John, and then Luke. Now, who was Mark? Mark is actually that little boy, when they arrested Jesus Christ, that little boy that ran out naked, that was Mark. His mother was a disciple. And when Peter was in jail and he was released from jail, the disciples gathered around John Mark's mother's house. So John Mark was a kingdom kid. Who grew. He knew Uncle Jesus. He knew Uncle Jesus. He knew Uncle Peter. He knew Uncle John. His mother was a prominent disciple there. And for the fact that they were able to meet in their home, that means that their house was large. So that means that they come from a very affluent background. I'm going to be talking much about him soon, much more some details. He came from a more affluent background. They were wealthy. That's why they could have homes, that can seat a lot of disciples. And of course, you will talk about go to John Mark's house. So historically, John Mark, they call him Mark, which was his Greek name. Then John, so a lot of times they just call him John Mark. So John Mark, based on history, some extra biblical history, was actually he was one that takes notes for Uncle Peter. So whenever Peter wants to go ahead and write, it was him that actually writes. That's why you see his writing. It's kind of cool in Greek, but Luke's one is like classical Greek. It was like perfect English, that he used. So people believe that the Gospel of Mark was a series of sermons that Jesus Christ, that Peter preached about Jesus Christ. And that's why you see the word repeated immediately. So it was like a fast sermon. Immediately, Jesus Christ went here. Immediately, he went here. Immediately, went there. So they call it a very fast-paced sermon. It's very short. It's very fast. It's like an action film. You just pam, 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 and it goes. So I want you to use your imagination. The way I use my imagination, I want you to imagine Mark taking all the things that Uncle Peter was saying. He now puts it down in this long sermon, and that became like, wow, this is the words of the apostles. Then I want you to imagine, Matthew, who is the only apostle, the apostle who actually wrote extensive in that gospel. I want you to imagine Matthew coming and said, this is a nice thing you've done. You know what? I can actually expand it. I can. There are some stories that probably you didn't add there. I can expand it and make it for the Jewish audience. Because Jews, there's some things you've written down here. As a Greek, it's okay, but as a Jew, they might not appreciate this. So I'm going to expand some of those things. So Matthew most likely took Mark. How do we know? Now it can also go reverse. It can be reversed. It can actually be like Mark took Matthew's gospel and now edited it short for the Greek whatever. But most scholars tend to believe that Mark wrote first, then Matthew now wrote. So Matthew now expanded it. That's why there's some passage of Mark and Matthew. They are just two. They are word for word, line for line, statement for statement. Everything just the same. But you notice that Matthew expanded it. Matthew expanded his own. Now John, obviously, John is not in the category of the synoptic gospel. When you hear synoptic, it means similar. The gospels that are similar are Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Luke is not like any of those things. So that's why we do not count, John. We do not count John as part of the synoptic gospel. They are not similar. So you see similarity between Matthew, Mark, and Luke. But John, there's no nativity scene. There's no genealogy. There's no other stuff. He just went, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. I mean, like, who writes like that? So his own writing is way separate from Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Now, Luke, as we know, Luke gives us some very, very cool, or like I say, he gave us some cool indications, indicators to know who wrote, why he wrote, and the sources that he have. So Luke said that many have undertaken to draw up an account of the things that have been revealed by them. So that means that Luke acknowledged that there are other accounts that was written already that were down. But why did he not add another account? Luke, as was talking to this man called Theophilus, whether it's one man, as Theophilus, one man, or Theophilus, a group of people. The word Theo is God in Greek. Then Phili or Philos, like Philadelphia, is friendship, friend. So Theophilus means friends of God or God lovers. So if it's addressing a person, that means it's a name, a man called Theophilus. If it's addressing a group of people, that means addressing people who love God, or he's calling them people that love God. And of course, you know that Luke is the one that wrote Acts, and Acts is clearly a continuation of the book of Luke, because Acts, began by saying, "In my former book," so he looked back. He said, "In my former book, Theophilus, I wrote about the things that Jesus began to do until he was taken away, having been ABCD, everything." So what he was saying that Jesus Christ, yes, was taken away, but Jesus Christ is still working. Now, by the time we start looking at the book of Acts, you'll see how that all makes sense. So Acts is actually the act of the Spirit. Jesus Christ left the world physically, but he stayed spiritually to continue to walk. So that is Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Now, Acts is a very exciting book. And that's why if you look at the book of Acts there, it links. So it actually is a bridge. Acts is a bridge. And that's why I'm going to be spending some more time today talking to us about the book of Acts. So Acts is a link between the book of the Gospels and the other letters. Now, think about it. Can you imagine what will happen to us if the book of Acts is not in the Bible? Now you'll find Romans, 1 Corinthians, 2 Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, 1 Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians, Timothy. Now you find all those books, but you're like, where did they come from? Where did all these churches come from? The last that we know, Jesus was preaching to his disciple in Matthew 28. He blessed them. In Luke at the end of Luke, the end of Mark. So I mean, from just these 12, where did all these guys, all these churches, they were all in Jerusalem. Without Acts, we will not know where these churches come from. So that's why the book of Acts is very, very important. It's the bridge. Acts makes sense of all these things. Why was the Corinthian church so stubborn? Why was the church in Philippi? Why did they write these things in Philippi? Then you go and look at his experience in Philippi. Why was he saying this about Galatian church? We cannot make sense. And by the time you look at Acts, you can't make sense of so many things if you don't bring them together. So I want us to open up our minds today, and I hope you're going to have questions you're going to ask. Then this is another thing that you need to know. After Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, Acts is a standalone book. It's a historical book that wants to pull in the gospel of Jesus Christ. Remember Theophilus? Then he now said, let me explain to you. He said, I'm going to write to you an orderly account. An orderly account. Now, let me explain this to you. The Gospels are not modern day history. They are not historical books in terms of history. Because when you talk about, I've written a history book, so I know. When you're writing history, you follow chronology. Chronology, that means time. You follow time. And if you look at the little history book that I wrote, I started from the 18th century, how the Church of Christ came, and how the Church of Christ began in America, and how the Church of Christ planted Lagos, and how Lagos planted whatever. It is time, so you can know. But biblical chronology is not the same thing as modern day chronology. What they do, and the Greeks too do the same thing, it is more of theological history. What they do is to bring what they think lays credence to the argument that they are trying to make. Sometimes they can place, historical accounts, the other way. So it might not be historically. Now, I want you to look at it. If you look at the gospel, I'm sure you must have seen it now. Jesus Christ tend to clear the temple how many times? Twice. Based on one gospel writer writes, another one. Remember, Jesus Christ was a rabbi. And every year he has to go to Jerusalem. So at least he must have gone to Jerusalem with his guys at least twice. But the Bible is not talking. That is not the reason why the gospel was written that way. Not tell us how many times he went, but to focus on what he did in the temple. Now, when you go to the book of Romans, you know, ask yourself, who planted the church in Rome? You probably not the apostles, because even when Paul was writing down, Paul was saying that he longed to come to Rome. He was desired to come to Rome so that he can come and impact on them some spiritual gift. So Paul at the time was writing those, that letter to Romans, hasn't actually gone to Rome. So how did the church now leave Jerusalem and appear in Rome, appear in Corinth, appear in Galatia? That is the answer that you are going to be you're going to be saying. Now, Paul wrote Romans. Listen carefully. Paul contributed more of the books in the New Testament. Paul wrote, let's count, Romans, 1 Corinthians, 2 Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, 1 Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians, 1 Timothy, 2 Timothy, Titus, and Philemon. So you can say about 13 books are credited to Paul. Now look at how they were arranged. They are not arranged chronologically. They are arranged from the most voluminous, the biggest, to the smallest. So I say that Philemon is the smallest book that Paul wrote, just a chapter. So they are arranged from the bigger, the most voluminous, of them down. So when you're reading it, you're not reading it chronologically. It's just the way it was arranged. So the first 13 books after the book of Acts was written by Paul. The first 13 books after the book of Acts were written by Paul. And they were arranged from the biggest to the smallest. Now, who was James? Is this James a disciple? No. This is actually James, the brother of Jesus. Now, Jesus Christ had several brothers and sisters who never became disciples when he was alive. In fact, they thought he was crazy. He thought he was a firstborn who didn't know how to take care of his family very well. But Jesus Christ tried to take care of his family. If Jesus was a second born, I believe he would have started ministry earlier. But you see, as a responsible firstborn, his job is to take care of his mom and his sibling, especially after his earthly father had died. So that's why I believe, personally, it's not anywhere in the Bible. That's why I believe that Jesus Christ waited until he was 30 years old before he would launch out in it. So by that time, he would have been able to set up the business, the family business of carpentry. He will have set up the family business of carpentry. His other younger ones will have risen up and every single thing. So he cannot say, at this time, I think I cannot go. His first foster father had died. He cannot go and start his ministry. And of course, that ministry has to be short, because if it's not short, then other things might probably happen. So it was 3 years. It was fast. It was furious, and it was dynamic. And we read several times in the Bible when his mother and his brothers will come and go leave church. They were like, we are waiting there. Go and call him. That's the sense of ownership, the sense of entitlement. Go and call Jesus Christ for me now. They say, Jesus, but they define you. Who? Your mother, whatever. I've told them, this is my mission. Listen, who is my mother? Now we didn't hear. My mothers are here, my fathers are here. Anybody who does my will is my brother, my sister, whatever. So many times. And of course, in the beginning of his gospel, we read where Jesus Christ, his mother was invited for an owambe, a party, an owambe. And he took his first son. Jesus, let's go hang out, let's go. And in those days, owambe, you bring your friends. In those days, you don't have to say, where's your card? This one, because Jesus Christ was a prominent man, so he could also go. He was a rabbi. So Jesus Christ now took his disciples. In those days, it's beneficial to travel with a rabbi, because you get free food, free lodging, free food, respect, everything. So that was why Jesus Christ turned water into wine. So Jesus Christ was not one weird monk who doesn't like hanging out, who doesn't like parties, but he was somebody that has a mission. Now, James was a brother of Jesus. Now, Peter became an elder, and of course, James was one that was leading the church in Jerusalem. As we get down to Acts chapter 5 and on, you find that James was one that was actually kind of in charge. So, and it makes sense that after Jesus Christ resurrected, what did he say? He said, go and tell James, my brother, go and tell him, I want that guy to come in. That guy is, if you can convert James, man, you can convert everybody else. So Jesus Christ specifically said, make sure you tell James when whatever happened, he said, go and tell James. Go and tell James. So James became a disciple. Peter wrote First Peter, Second Peter as an apologia. That's as I also to warn people of what's going to come, and also to also talk about the things that are happening. By this time, a lot of things were happening in the church. And you and I will know, a church will start off very small. As you grow, just like a child, as a child grows, then so many characters begin to come, so many things will come. The same thing as a church. So don't be surprised when you begin to see problems in your church or your small group or your Bible talk. It is just part of growing up. So your job is to make sure that you keep trimming, keep teaching. And that's why teaching is very, very important, especially now. So Peter wrote, James wrote, John now wrote his short letters, First John, Second John, and 3rd John. Then Jude also wrote, a brother of Jesus again. Jude, the word Jude is, Judas. Just like the word James is Jacques in French. That's what they call it, Jacques. So they are very common names. The names I have there. Most of what you see are the Greek variants of them. So all these John, James, Jude. It's ought to be Judah or Judas. Then finally, Revelation. So John penned down the book of Revelation. So now that you have the flow, so you see the flow, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. That's how you remember. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Okay? Like that poem, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Bless the bed that I lay on. That's all right. Then you see Acts is the bridge. Acts is the bridge between the Gospels and the letters. The rest are all letters. Now, I missed the book of Hebrew. I'm going to talk about that. Then, how do you remember the chronology? The arrangement of the book of Paul? Know that the first 13 books were written by Paul, and they were arranged according to how big they are, the volume to the smallest. So, if you remember that, Romans is the biggest, and Philemon is the smallest, you can fill in the gap. 1 Corinthians, 2 Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, 1 Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians. You can even come up with an acronym. I actually did that. I came up with an acronym that each time I remember the acronym, I just know how it flows. But Hebrews, let me do a quick Hebrews. Now we don't know who wrote the book of Hebrews. We don't know, and we are not shy to say we don't know. So it's always good to say you don't know when you don't know. So I'm trying to open my Bible here. Let me just quickly share something quickly that I think will fascinate us. So who wrote the book of Hebrews? Now, we don't know who wrote the book of Hebrews. That's one. But we can't say it was Paul either. Now, I will tell you why. We don't know who wrote the book of Hebrews, and we can't say it was Paul. If you look at the old King James Version, the old King James Bible, I say I have one, very, very old one. You will find Gospel of Paul to the Hebrews. It's not Paul that wrote the Hebrews. Now, as we begin to look at what they call textual criticism, we don't find that Paul has a style. There's a style of how he writes. In fact, he has a marker. He has, at the end of his book, he will sign it. He will tell you, this is my handwriting. This is how I write, and I write boldly. Now, boldly could mean that he wrote very intensely, or his pen marks were very bold. Now, why was that? Now, if you take the argument that his writing was very thick, very bold, that could suggest that Paul had bad eyesight. Now, if you also look at what Paul told one of the churches, he said, I know you love me. In fact, you can pluck your eyes out from me, if possible. So that also means that Paul had maybe bad eyesight. If you also notice what Paul said to the high priest, when he says, slap him, and the high priest said, slap him, and he slapped him. And Paul said, God will strike you also. Paul said, what? Don't you know as the high priest? What? Naim? Okay, I didn't know that was the high priest. So maybe he had bad eyesight also. And maybe he got that bad eyesight to so many beating, striking, beating, stoning. And so people began to believe that, that bad eyesight became a permanent, feature for him. Physically, he was not very impressive because he went through a lot. Now, look at what I'm going to show right now. I'm going to quickly do this. I've just opened my book to book of James. There seems to be a style. There's some words that Paul uses each time he writes. Look at Romans chapter 1 in verse 7. He said, to all in Rome who are loved by God and who are called to be saints, grace and peace to you from God. Grace and peace. And he also ends his letters that way, but I'm not going to go through that. Now, let me quickly just go through from Romans to First Corinthians. First Corinthians chapter 1 in verse 3. What does it say? Grace and peace to you from God. I'll jump to 2 Corinthians now. 2 Corinthians chapter 1 in verse 3. It says, sorry, verse 2, it says, grace and peace to you from God, for God Jesus Christ. I can do this all the way. Galatians chapter 1 in verse 3, grace and peace to you from God. From there, I can go to Ephesians chapter 1 in verse 3. Verse 2, it says, grace and peace to you from God our Father. From there to Philippians chapter 1 verse 2, grace and peace to you from God. Then from there you go to Colossians chapter 1 in verse 2b. It says grace and peace to you from God. Then we'll go to Thessalonians chapter 2 in verse 1. It says grace and peace to you. 2 Thessalonians chapter 1 in verse 2, again it says grace and peace. 1 Timothy chapter 1 in verse 2, it says grace, mercy, and peace, from God. 2 Timothy chapter 1 in verse 2, it says to Timothy, my dear son, grace, mercy, and peace, from God. Now from there, we'll now land, to Titus. In Titus, chapter 1 in verse 4, to Titus, my true son in my common faith, grace and peace from God. Then finally, in Philemon. In Philemon, verse 3, it says grace and peace. That was one of Paul's signature. Now, you can't see that in Hebrews. You can't see that in Hebrews. And so that was one of the things that, and you can't see that anywhere else, really. And so that was one of the things that they used in knocking off the idea that Hebrew was written by Paul. It didn't sound like anything that Paul, now it sounds something similar, but they couldn't find those patterns, the way it starts and the way it ends. So Paul began to maintain a pattern. At the particular time, he began to sign his letters. You know why? Because there were a lot of pseudo books that were coming on. I'm going to share some with you today. A lot of people will write letters, and they will not claim it was from Paul. And they were disciples who lie. So the biggest problem that the church began to face there was not opposition from without. They know how to deal with that one. It's very easy. We can deal with that one. But the most dangerous threats that the church can have is from within. And that's why we also have to open up our ears. What are people saying? What are they not saying? Let's always make sure that we are hearing. Don't get to the point where you block people's the receptors you have, so that people cannot reach you again. And so that when you hear false doctrine coming to your church, don't slow down. You don't need, quickly deal with it. Quickly deal, or else the Bible says it's going to spread like gangrene. So we've gone through Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Now let's answer some questions. And this is a question I know you have it in your mind. You are thinking it, but I'm the one saying it. Here's some questions you might have. Why do we have 4 gospels? Why can't you just have one? Why can't you have just one? And how come we can't have? Because they are all different. One is saying one thing, another one is saying another thing. It's kind of confused. Sometimes the Muslims, even attempt to use that as a basis to want to claim the inspiration of the gospel. If God is what inspired it, why can't it just be one? Now, that's a very good question, by the way. And we need to be asking questions like that. Here is what I will say. Let's look at a man called Irenaeus of Lyon. He was a teacher. He was a leader in the church, in the early century. This is about 180 AD. So this is very early. Look at what he said. As at that time, they recognized 4 gospels. Now, my arguments initially, you might see part of my arguments here. He said Matthew also issued a written gospel among the Hebrews. Remember, Matthew was focusing more on the Hebrew-speaking people. He also, issued a written gospel among the Hebrews in their own dialects, while Peter and Paul were preaching at Rome. Now, that will let you know that Matthew came later, because at this time, if Peter and Paul were already in Rome, that means that Matthew obviously came much later. So while Peter and Paul were preaching at Rome and laying the foundation of the church, after their departure, now that is where a little bit of confusion will happen. after their departure, Mark, the disciple and interpreter, you see, this is where we actually got that idea that Mark was an interpreter of Peter. Mark, the interpreter of Peter, did also hand down to us a written, in writing what had been preached by Peter. So that's what we've got the idea that Mark's gospel was actually a draft of Peter's sermons. So he gathered all of Peter's sermons about Jesus Christ and put them together. So Mark was able to now say, guys, this is what I've been keeping it for many, many years, though, but this is what I have. So Mark, the disciple and interpreter of Peter, did also hand down to us, in writing what has been preached by Peter. Luke, also a companion of Paul, recorded in a book the gospel preached by him. That was by Paul. What he recorded in a book. Afterwards, John, the disciple of the Lord, who also had leaned upon his breast, did himself publish a gospel during his residence in Ephesus, at Ephesus in Asia. So this is the earliest account that we actually find that even as at this time, at very early stage, they are saying we have 4 gospels. Now, this argument is very, very important because you are going to use this evidence and this argument to knock off anybody who come and say, oh, what about the gospel of Barnabas, the gospel of Mary Magdalene, the gospel of Judas? I'm going to show you some of those gospels very soon. All of those, whatever. Oh, the church had, during the time of Constantine, which was 300 years after. Oh, the people met, or 500 years, 300, not happy 300, 500 years. People met together and they now decided which of the gospels we are going to church. No, that never, took place. So you need to know history. Again, if you don't know history, you cannot determine why you are where you are. You won't know where you're coming from, and you cannot project where you want to be. Because if where you are is not where you are coming from, then you have to determine, so where do I want to go? But if you just erase history, you can make somebody go blind everywhere. So why do you have 4 gospels? Now, I'm an artist, so I'm going to be using lesson from art. But before that, they did say this is an exercise I always like doing. I always ask people to sign. Hold on. Sign their signature. I'm not sure you can see this. It's pencil. So if you sign your signature, try signing it 4 times. Try signing your signature. If you can do it now, fine. Try signing your signature 4 times. And if you get all of them perfect, then you can unmute your mic and speak. If you can get all of them perfect, they are all perfect, the same thing, you can unmute your mic and speak. If not, wait until the person. So what do you notice when you actually sign? Now, none is perfectly identical to another. You can never sign your signature 4 times and they will all be perfectly identical. Now, they might look identical from afar, but when you come close, you'll find out they are not identical. Now, this is a copy of my signature. These are the things that bankers use. When you go to withdraw money from the cashier, if you go to a bank, the first thing, not the first thing, one of the things they'll look at your card, your ID card. Does your ID card match? That is, if it's not your own account, they will look at, does your ID card match the name there? So you have to be authentic ID card. So if it matches, fine. They look at the dates. Is it a post-dated check so that they don't go and give you money when you're not supposed to get money? Or has the check expired? There's a number of months, maybe 6 months or so, that the check can stay with you. If you don't cash it, it will have expired. Because there's no guarantee that the person who gives you the check has money in their bank account. That's why you have to quickly cash your check. Now, they also look at the signature of the person. Now, where you might not know it, but where the signature you bring, it's the exact replica of the one that the person has signed and is looking at them on the screen. They won't tell you, they'll just say, okay, just give us a minute, whatever. They will go and call the person and say, okay, we have somebody here with this check number, ABCD. And they also look at the sequence of the check. Because sometimes when people would like to steal checkbook, they will go to the back and tear a leaflet. If that number of that check is too far from the last one, they also call the person and were like, did you send somebody to go and catch whatever? For verification. is very, very important. So here I have 4 of my signatures here. And if you observe look closely at the screen, they are all identical. There's no difference. Why is that so? Because it's a print. It's a replica. It's just like a rubber stamp. It's a print or whatever. So where that signature is a direct replica is called forgery. They will say you went to forge it, because a forgery is something that is a replica of another thing. It's called forgery. That's why there's no way you sign a signature and it's going to be the same. If it's exactly the same thing that is submitted to the bank, it's called forgery. Now, as an artist, this building is somewhere in Boston. I've gone to eat lunch around this place, and I studied the Bible with somebody around there. It's a fishing community, and they sell seafood. So this is actually one of the most photographed pictures. Photographs. The places in the whole of that place, because it's a unique place. It's a red building, and many times artists, they come and paint. A lot of artists, they'll come and do watercolor. They come and do whatever. So I'm going to show you. Here we have 4 paintings of that same building. 4 paintings of that same building. Now, one thing that is consistent here, you cannot say it's not that building. It is the same building. But each artist have used one. They've used different medium to paint. One, the one at the lower part use watercolor. The one at the upper part you use either oil or gouache, which is like poster color. So they use different medium. Sometimes you can write a story in different languages. One can write in Greek, one can write in Hebrew, one can write in Latin, but it's the same story. But unless you can read the language, you won't be able to understand the story. Now, the second thing is perspective. Perspective is how you see something, where you stand, your point of view. Your perspective is your point of view. Sometimes somebody can go uphill to paint an object. He's going to see it more of the roof. Somebody can go lower. Somebody can choose to paint the back, the front, everywhere. So it is the same building, but seen in different perspectives. And that is how I believe the gospel also is. Now, interestingly, somebody he said, all 4 canonical gospel exist in the list of church scriptures as early as 115. And Justin Matthias himself, confirm all of those things. And they didn't change it in the Council of Nicene that came 300 years after, about 325. So anybody that tells you that one is not telling you fact. Now, some of what I'm sharing with you, I actually developed this class about 15 years ago, or about when I was teaching the class on confronting the Da Vinci Code. So sometimes some of things I'm going to paste in here are kind of counter-rebuter from the Da Vinci Code and what the Bible actually says. Now, one of the things that the Da Vinci Code will tell you that they found other gospels in the Dead Sea Scroll. I know I've talked about the Dead Sea Scroll. Dead Sea Scroll was discovered around, I think, 1947, between 45 and 47, by this Muslim Bedouin heads boy, goat's heads boy. And the way it was discovered was very dramatic. The guy was herding his goats, and from time to time, the goats normally wander away and they enter caves. So when it was time to go, they normally just throw things in the cave, because they were high up. They'll be throwing stone so that the goats will run out. So as this boy was throwing this stone, he was hearing something break. Pottery, was actually breaking. And when he went there, lo and behold, he found, jars, clay jars everywhere. Clay jars, and he had manuscripts. So he didn't know what it was. He thought it was paper. It was 1947. So he thought it was, paper. Okay, at night, it gets very, very cold in that place. So what he did was to gather them together to actually light fire. But he didn't light well. It was like, this is not light well. He now found out that some of them actually leather. He now took them to the market to go and sell them to a shoemaker to make slippers and sandals. So that's what he was doing. He was taking them, going to be selling them and everything. So much later, that thing now began to go around until a Catholic priest, I believe, found it and was ask people, where did you get this thing from? This is actually ancient manuscript. They didn't know. This is actually the oldest known ancient manuscript of the Jewish community in the world. Ever know, this is the oldest. but people didn't know what they are. And the same thing, if you cannot read, there's a lot of things that you're going to take for granted, or if you're not enlightened. So this guy now went and he bought them. He bought the one the guys had, and he asked them to go and show him where they found it. And lo and behold, they got there, and boom, and that's where they actually found all of these things. So if you look at the book of Josephus, records how the assailants, those freedom fighters, they were in one corner. They also have these assailants, or the essence, they would normally go and hide by the Dead Sea. And that's why some people believe that John the Baptist was a member of that group or that sect. He was a member of that sect. So the Dead Sea Scroll belonged to that sect. Those people who felt that the world was already corrupted, the temple was corrupted, Jerusalem was corrupted, let's just go and start our own community. And that is where they went to go and stay. So they also believe that during the time of the Jewish war, they had to go and hide them. And some people also believe that it was a burial site for the scroll. Like, whenever they have scrolls, they unroll them and roll them back and forward back. When the scrolls have gotten very old, they place them in jars of clay and do a burial ceremony, for them. Because if you feel that this is the word of God, you have to treat it very well. And that reminds me of what the Bible said. The Bible said that God has put precious gifts, something precious in our body, jars of clay. We are basically clay, and God has put the Spirit in us. So this is the Dead Sea in Qumran. The Dead Sea, this is Qumran, where this were found, and this is where the community lived. And just down here is where John the Baptist began to preach, by the Jordan. Just a little bit north by the Jordan. That's where John the Baptist began to preach in the wilderness of Judea. And down here is Masada. This is where the stronghold of the freedom fighters. And here in Gedi is where David came to hide, where he wrote all those nice poems. It's actually, they actually have a spring there. And of course, Jericho is not far from there. All right, so this is just a quick an area view of that. But this is the community of the essence up there, where the arrow, the Qumran, and this is where the caves are. This is where they hid it. So this is the community where they lived, and this is where the cave, where they came to come and hide all of those stuff. How they're able to make their way there? Obviously, that erosion has eaten up most of this place. So they basically had a path that they normally used to walk into that place. This is also part of the excavation of where they lived and every single thing. Now, the Dead Sea Scroll, roughly about 850 and 25, 70 documents were found. The only document that was not found there is the book of Esther. People will tell you, oh, they found this, they found that. We know exactly what was the scroll. We know exactly what was found in the Dead Sea. In Cave 4, which is one of the most popular caves, Cave 4, they had about 15,000 fragments, were found. And they found the entire book of Isaiah complete, intact. In fact, the time I went to Israel, I was very fortunate. That was the time they were displaying that Isaiah scroll. They don't display it often because they want to preserve it as long as they could. So the time I went there was when they were displaying it. And of course, you cannot go and touch it. You're not allowed to carry any artificial light to that place or to be snapping picture. It is just natural lights that they have illuminating that place. They have to build a special museum, a clay museum, to actually preserve that scroll. So here are a list of the books that were found. The book of Psalm, about 39 copies were found. Deuteronomy 33, the book of Enoch, which is a very interesting book actually. You need to read it. Book of Enoch, 25 books. And of course, the Bible actually quoted from book of Enoch, Genesis 24 book, and on to 1st and 2nd Samuel, where we found 4 copies of 1st and 2nd Samuel. Here are the clay jars. I have a replica of this clay jar, with the scroll, a replica of the scroll of Isaiah, sticking out from it. They also found leather, pottery that those guys use, and this is how the scroll of Isaiah is. This is the scroll of Isaiah. Now you might ask, why is it kind of eating up here? It's because of the way it was kept, moisture, everything, lacuna. We eat it away, and we found out it was the exact replica of the book of Isaiah that was found. This is the picture of the dome that was created to actually house it. So to make sure it's cool, they pour the water on it, they'll be wetting the water, and it's chilly inside there. So there's no artificial air coming in, there's no artificial anything coming in. So they'll be able to preserve it. This is how it looks inside. This is how the dome looks inside. And this is the bigger picture of it, taken by one of my friends that went to Israel with us. Okay, now let's look at the textual evidence for ancient manuscripts. Now, people are quick to criticize the Bible. Oh, the Bible, we don't believe in the Bible. We don't believe in this one. But you believe in other books. Now, let us look at what you will use to actually determine. Now, some of you are familiar with some of these books and names like Aristotle. I'm going to mention the ones that I think you're familiar with, like Aristotle, Julius Caesar, Homer. Homer is a popular one. Homer is one that wrote the Odyssey. The Odyssey, the Battle of Troy, what do you call it again, about Hector, about all those stories, Then Plato and Old Testament, New Testament. Now, I want you to take very good attention, pay attention at some of these things. Now, let me take this Aristophanes. This book was written 400 years before Jesus was born. This was during the time of the Maccabean revolt and everything. The oldest copy we have, that means those days they don't print, they hand copy everything. And so because you hand copy everything and they were copied on papyri or papyrus and whatever, those copies get spoiled. And as they're getting spoiled, they are copying new ones and new ones and new ones and new ones. So the oldest copy that we have today of that book written 400 years before Jesus Christ died, was copied at 900 years after Christ had died, 900 AD. So that leaves a span of 1,300 years. Now, why am I saying this? If you have ever played the game Chinese, the Chinese whisper game, where you whisper something on somebody's ear, then that person whisper on that person's ear, and on and on and on. You see, the longer the thread of information, the more corruption can enter the speech or enter the writing or enter the the word, the more it can be corrupted, the more easily it can be corrupted. So if something was penned down 400 years before Jesus Christ was born, and they kept copying it, the oldest copy we have is 900 AD. So that's a span of 1,300 years of copying. 1,300 of copying, and we only have 45 copies today. Nobody has come to say, oh, that book is not true. Aristotle, people go to university to go and study his writing, his saying, his message. Aristotle lived almost around the same time, 340 BC. The oldest copy of the book of Aristotle that we have is actually AD 1100. That's a span of almost 1,500 between the first, between when the events happened, and the oldest copy we have. From the time of the events, 340, and the oldest surviving copy that we have, that means if I've gone through copy was almost 1,500 years. I only have 5 copies left. Nobody has come to say Aristotle is not true. Then let me jump to Julius Caesar. People quote Julius Caesar. They believe in the story of Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar, happened very close to Jesus' birth. It was just 50 years, 50 BC. That was when the Roman Empire had begun to rule. So Julius Caesar, his story happened 50 BC. But the oldest copy that we have is actually 900 AD. That means we have other copies that were written 910, 912, but the oldest we have is 900 AD. That's a span of almost 1,000 years, and we have only 10 copies left. And so, how are we sure that there's no corruption? What about Plato? Plato happened 360 years BC. The earliest copy we have is 800 AD. That's 1,150 years. We only have 50 copies, and nobody ever says that, oh, Plato is wrong. Now let's go to the Old Testament. The story of the Old Testament happened, where the documents, were penned down between 1,500 years BC and 500 BC and 500, BC. And the oldest copy we have is 200 BC, not even AD. And that's a span of, initially, it was a span of 400 years, listen carefully, until, boom, we found the Dead Sea Scroll. The Dead Sea Scroll just took it to a different level. The Dead Sea Scroll just narrowed the whole thing to just 200 years. I want to compare that with all the lists that we have here. The oldest copy of the New Testament is just 200 years away. And we have, for crying out loud, we have 5,000 copies that you can compare with. 5,000 copies available. What about the New Testament? New Testament happened AD 50 and 90. The story between AD, where they were penned down between AD 50 and AD 90. The oldest copy that we have dated back as 125 AD, just 50-year difference. And we have 8,000 complete copies that you can actually look and check. So which one should you not believe in? A story that is still fresh in the minds of people when they were writing it down, even as we were copying it. People copying it, they already know the story. And as we're going down, they were copying it. And there's also a style that the Jews follow, where the Bible said that the word of God has not one iota. Iota means a stroke. That's actually the shortest word in Hebrew. And when I was taking the language, that's when I actually got to know that this is true. The smallest letter of the Hebrew language is called a yod. A yod is like a command that I put up, a yod. And he said not even one small yod or iota will miss. Why? Why they say so? Because they count them on a papyrus. They know how many letters that will enter. And you to know that the Jewish script there's no space, there's no comma, there's no full stop. They just write brrr, brrr. And that's why you think it's hard to read. No, it's actually very easy to read. When you begin to learn, you can actually read it because you make sense. In the same way, if you can try doing it, if you write Matthew 28, 18 to 20, without leaving a space, write it down. You can actually read it. If you know English, you can actually read it. So that's how we read the Hebrew word. So the Bible said that you can't make mistake because they have counted how many words, how many alphabets we enter a space. So that's why after they've written, they will count to make sure, and if it's wrong, then they will condemn the whole script and start all over again. So the Hebrew writing has a way of maintaining integrity in everywhere. So people can say all they want to say. The truth is that the Bible is the word of God. I want you guys to go and read all this. I don't have time. We don't have enough time. We just have 1 more hour to go. But let's look at the unity of the Bible. The Bible contains 66 books. It was written over a period of 1,600 years. And over a period of 40 generations by approximately 40 authors. And these are just authors that went to the same school. They went to the same faculty. They were in the same country. No, these are people who are all over the place. For example, Moses was a politician, a political leader in Israel. Peter was a fisherman. Amos was a herdsman. Joshua was a military general. Nehemiah was a cupbearer and he worked with the king. Solomon was a king. Luke was a physician. How can you get people from different, and they lived in different times? How can you ask them to tell the same story and there will not be conflict? And that is one of the things about the Bible. You get these people over a period of 1,600 years. You get different people who have lived in different places, who work in places, in wilderness, in dungeon, by the hillside, while traveling, in exile, every single thing, to write this story, to write like part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5, give them different parts. And they've not seen each other. They didn't live together, each other, and they wrote a seamless story. That one part did not contradict another part. That is why it's the Spirit of God. They wrote at different times, at time of war, at time of peace, during different moods, when they were happy, when they were whatever, and in 3 continents, in Asia, in Africa, and in Europe. And yet they all have the same. They went seamlessly, and finally they were written in 3 languages, in Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. And of course in the Bible, you find fulfillment of prophecies. In fact, people that didn't believe in Jesus Christ, and they heard about Jesus' prophecies and how he fulfilled it, they say it's not possible. They claim that the disciples of Jesus must have gone to go and write those things in the scrolls, like in the scroll of Psalms, in Isaiah, whatever they say is a lie. Like anything you bring. And again, the Jews, we are very suspicious of the Bible that disciples used. And I will tell you that's why. The first time that the Bible left its original language, which is Hebrew, to any other language was the Septuagint, the LXS. The LXS. L is 50, X is 10, another 10. So if you have 50 plus, plus 20 is 70. So after the diaspora, there were a lot of, a lot of this, Jewish people living all over the world. Many of them were in Alexandria in Egypt. And Alexandria had a very big university, and because of the Roman Empire actually protected the Jews, and so they began to grow. First from Greek, Alexander, Alexander time, then Roman time. The Jews were protected everywhere they were, and at that time, a lot of them were no more speaking Hebrew, but they wanted to still hold on to their custom. So they now took permission from the guy that was in charge, ruling guy, that they would like to translate this, and they gave them permission to go and translate it. And that's why history has that they got 70 scholars together in Egypt, in Alexandria, and over a long period of time, they began translating the Hebrew Bible, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, and got to do them gradually into Greek. Now, the Jews were not happy. The core Jews were not very, very happy. They were like, no. Just like today, a Muslim will tell you that the Quran in any language is not the Quran. They call it is a translation. So even when you show a Muslim the Quran, like I actually have two copies here. When you show them a Quran, English Quran, look at that, they will say maybe that's not what the real this thing says. You know why? Most Muslims don't speak Arabic. Right now, one of the biggest debates in Nigeria is why should we have Arabic inscriptions on our Naira notes? There's no community that speaks Arabic in Nigeria. And of course, those things were done by the Hausa, Fulani people who were, the ruling of us for many years during the military rule, where there was no democracy. They can put anything, and it's also a way of Islamizing our country, Nigeria. We say you put Yoruba there, put Igbo, put Hausa, put Yoruba, put Efipa, but don't put Arabic. Even most other people don't speak Arabic. 99.99999% of them don't speak Arabic. What they do is only to memorize the Quran in Arabic. So you can memorize in a language without knowing what the language is saying. So the Jews, the Hebrew, the stock Hebrew people were like, no, we don't want our word, our scripture, our Torah in any language. So when Christ was around, the disciples, the version of the Torah they used was the LXS, the Septuagint. That's what they actually use. So people were not saying that, okay, if you are claiming that these things is true, maybe the disciples of Jesus Christ were the one that went to go and sneak these things into the LXS. Of course, until 1947, of course, we knew it was not true. But 1947 just broke the whole thing, because we found a book of Isaiah and whatever that 1,000 years older than any known manuscript. They were older than Jesus's physical existence on earth, older than all the apostles. So how could they have gone back into time to go and write those things? And everything that the Dead Sea Scroll says, the scrolls of Isaiah and the rest, matches exactly everything you have in your Bible. So don't let anybody tell you otherwise. It is exactly the same thing. So the prophecies that Jesus Christ fulfilled were so many that somebody said, I'm just going to go fast. I'm going to go. Like in numerical form, it's going to be, for you to fulfill it, one of those things, all those stuff, it has to be 1 in 84 times 10 raised to the power of 1, 2, 3. Now, that's a lot. If you want to put it in mathematical form, this is how it is. The probability of fulfilling even half of those prophecies, one person, is 1 in 84 times 10 to the power of 1, 2, 3. Now, let me make it clear to you for some of us who are not mathematically inclined. Probability is me now going on my floor in my house and using my hand, drag my hand on the floor. Then I pick up a grain of sand. Then I go to the Sahara Desert. Then I throw that sand anywhere, just my hand, the sand. Then I come to you, I say, oh boy, come. Go to the Sahara Desert and find that 1 grain of sand. That is the probability. It is impossible. So there are a lot of scientific things that are found in the Bible that's actually outdated, even scientific exploration. And we don't have time to go through there, like the shape of the earth, ecology, and everything. Everything comes from H2O. Water is the base for every single thing. The Bible contains all of those stuff. Unlike ancient scriptures, if you read some of them, you're going to laugh. The ancient Hindu scriptures says that the earth is carried by elephants. God placed the earth. Of course, it's flat. That is on the back of elephants, but they are the strongest animal. And those elephants are standing on the back of a tortoise, a giant tortoise that is swimming around everywhere. Now, if you think that is funny, even the Greek, they have a god known as Atlas. If you see some of this medication, they'll put Atlas. You'll see this very strong man carrying the globe on his back. They say Atlas is the one carrying everything. And we have so many. But only the Bible says that the earth is spherical. The earth is suspended in nothing. And that's even before science. So I'm going to go fast. A bit about the Gnostics, the Gnostic document. Yes, they exist, but they are not written by the apostles, and they are not true. I have some of them. I've read a few, but the idea is not biblical. The word Gnosticism is from the word to know. A time came that some disciples began to say, "Oh, there's some hidden knowledge. You're not complete as a disciple unless you have some hidden knowledge." And they now began to introduce all kinds of things in the church, and that's why the apostles wrote to actually combat what we're saying. There's one of the popular one was found in Nag Hammadi, not far from Egypt. I have a picture of it somewhere. I'm not sure. Okay, I probably took it out. They claim they have the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. Let me share some of the Gospel. Gospel of Thomas, Gospel of the Egyptians, the letter of Peter to Philip. They even have a letter of Jesus. One that says Jesus Christ wrote a letter to this. And it's a nice letter, so if you are to read it. Then, the Gospel of Philip, the Apocalypse of Peter, the Testimony of Truth, the Gospel of Truth, the Apocalypse of Paul. And, in one of those Gospels, those quote Gospels, like Gospel of Barnabas, or I believe, or Thomas, they actually insinuated that Jesus was married to Mary Magdalene. And that is the whole essence of the Da Vinci Code. That's just the whole thing. And also about the story of the Grail, the Holy Grail. Now, a grail is just a mug, a cup. Now, the story goes like this, that after Jesus Christ died, when he was laid down, that somebody took a chalice, a grail, a cup, and scooped his blood, Jesus' blood. And that thing that became the holy, the holy grail. People have been worshiping it and everything. And that is the whole story of King Arthur. If you watch King Arthur and the Square Knights, or if you have watched Merlin or whatever, the whole expedition is going to go and find the Holy Grail. And also, if you watch the story of Robin Hood, was the story of the Holy Grail. And if you watch if you read the book of the Inferno, what about the Holy Grail? So people have all kinds of legend that they've written about Jesus, all kinds of legend written about Jesus Christ, and they want us to believe in it. And we said, no, we are going to hold on to the ones the apostles told us, because the apostles were the eyewitnesses. Anything that's not for the apostles, we're not going to believe. That's why even the gospel were either written by the apostles or people who were close associates with the apostles. They were right there, and they were writing down the words of the apostles. And that's why in Acts 2, it says they were devoted to the apostles' teaching, to the fellowship, to the breaking of bread, and to prayer. Now, this is how we are going to end today. And we're going to look at the book of Acts, and I'm going to do a quick overview. Let me just open my Bible. I'm going to do a quick overview of the book of Acts. Let us see how history can answer some of the questions that we have. Obviously, the Holy Spirit came in Acts 2. Jesus Christ spent 40 days was after resurrection, he was on earth for 40 days, where he was convincing disciples, appearing to to them, rebuking them, giving them free food, appearing to so many people. That was at a point he appeared to like 500 people at the same time. And that is one of the evidences that we have that people say, oh, did they really see Jesus Christ? Are you sure that Peter saw Jesus Christ? Are you sure that Mary saw Jesus Christ? Are you sure they saw Jesus Christ? No, no, no. They were hallucinating. And I know what hallucination is. Anybody can hallucinate. But 500 people cannot hallucinate at the same time. In fact, 2 people cannot hallucinate the same thing at the same time. It's not possible. How much more 500 people? These are all a false claim to try to discredit Jesus and the gospel. Now, if in Acts chapter 1, Jesus Christ told them when they asked him, so Lord, are you at this time, based on what you're saying, are you at this time going to restore the kingdom back to Israel? We've been talking about this kingdom, right? We've been slaves to the Egyptians. We will be slaves to the Assyrians. We will be slaves to the Babylonians. We'll be slaves to Greece. Now we're slaves to Rome. So we're still thinking worldly. Are you going to return? He said, it's not for you to know. That's not what we're talking about right now. But guess what? You will see power. I am going to be my witnesses in Jerusalem, in Judea. Judea is a whole country. It's called, Judea. The capital of Judea is Jerusalem. So Jerusalem, in that small, city where they are, in Judea, then it brought about this half-breed on campus. We've been looking at sermons for the past 3 weeks on the Samaritans. The bridge between Jerusalem and Galilee is that Samaria, then to the ends of the earth. At what point did the gospel actually go to the end of the earth? Now, this is what I'm going to do. So that was Acts 1. In Acts 2, they were all gathered together, God-fearing Jews, in verse 5, from every nation under heaven. When they heard this word, a crowd came together in bewilderment because each one had them speaking in his own tongue. If you want to know about that tongue has been prophesied, from lips of strangers. I'm going to be talking to you guys. It's a sign of judgment, also. So there were Jews that were scattered all over the world during the time of the diaspora. They were, if you look at the names, the Bible said that they all came together in bewilderment because each one had them speaking in his own native language. These were countries that used to be at war. Persians. Now, I didn't memorize it. I just know it. Persians, Medes, Elamites, Mesopotamia, Judea, Cappadocia, Pamphylia, Asia, Libya, Cyrene, all that. This were, if you look at some of those words like the Medes, right? Yeah, the Medes. Persians, we know about the Persians. People around Mesopotamia, that's where Babylon, all those places are. We know about them. Now, the Jews were scattered all over the place. Once every year, all those Jews come together to come and celebrate the feast of Passover. They celebrate the feast. They come to Jerusalem and come and celebrate the feast. That was the same feast that Jesus went with his mother and father when he was 12 years old. They come and it's a party for all those time, for weeks, they're going to be there. And the last day of the celebration is called Pentecost or Pentecost. Pentecost is the feast of harvest, in gathering. So God, because he's very smart, God said, on that day, I'm going to also gather my own people. So that was a harvest. So they were in Jerusalem. On the last day, this thing happened. They were not at the upper room praying. Bible said they just gathered there. All some of these songs that we sing, they were there praying. No, Bible said they were praying. They were just gathered because they were also they've come for the feast. And Jesus Christ told them, don't leave Jerusalem. Stay in Jerusalem. So they have to hang out with some of their relatives and friends and whatever. So on one occasion, 120 of them were gathered together, and boom, there was something that looks like tongues of fire. It's not fire, real fire. If you real fire, it will burn down the house. And it came and separated and rest on each of them, and all of them began to speak in other tongues as the Spirit enabled them. They were not the one doing it the way they want. No, the Spirit enabled. Okay, you're going to be speaking Medes, you're going to be speaking Persian, you're going to be speaking this one, going to speak all kinds of languages. So to draw attention, remember there was a common language. It was Greek, Koine Greek, like Pidgin English. It was Koine Greek, the common Greek. The opposite of common Greek is classical Greek. So they were speaking common Greek. So look at how it could have happened. They were in that upper room. That thing happened. They now began to speak other languages. They now came out and began to make their way towards the temple because it was a feast, and they were whatever. So if you don't read the Bible well, you think that the whole crowd came to that one room. So when Peter began to preach, he was most likely in the temple now, by the temple court. He was now speaking. He was like, these people drunk. I beg, they don't shout, they have too much wine. Peter now stood up and said, well, brothers, because they were all gathered together and they were speaking languages. Well, Peter now stood up with the 11, raised his voice and said, men and brothers, what you see today, he said, we are not drunk, as some of you, I've heard some of you say we are drunk. We're not drunk. What you see today is the fulfillment of the prophecy by Joel. So you now go to that Joel chapter 2. And now he said, at the last day, I'm going to pour out. God has poured out his spirit. What we are doing right now is to receive the spirit of the pour. That's why that event has never happened again, where there is fire and whatever single thing, wind was blowing, there was sound. It won't happen again. God has poured out his Holy Spirit. So that is Acts 2. Many people believed him, but not many people accepted what they were going to say, the remedy. So it is easy for you to believe what I'm saying, but not accept. Only those who accept it will go further. So the Bible now said those who accepted were baptized, and about 3,000 were added to their number that day. So that is how Acts 2 ended. And Acts 2 showed us how they were all together. So those people who were added to a number, we now have Greeks and Hebrews. They were all Jewish. We now have the Hebraic Jews. We're going to come to that one very soon. We now have the Hebraic Jews and the Jewish Jew. Now, they were all living together. One of the significant events that happened was in Acts chapter 3, when Peter went to the the beautiful gates or whatever, and he was climbing up there, and the man was like, give me money, give me money. Peter was like, this guy don't say we don't get money. Give money, give money. Say, look at me. Do I look like I have money? That's how I interpret. Say, just look at me. I don't want money. But in the name of Jesus Christ, Nazareth, rise up and walk. So he healed. The people who saw him were like, what? We know this man. We know the Babiala man. He's there. We've been seeing him for years and every single thing. But why is it that when people do good, it becomes a threat? Rather than say, wow, we are happy that at least now that man will not be a burden to us anymore. That man will not be here begging whatever. He cannot go to his family. But people had bad belly towards them. Bad belly in Nigeria means bad attitude. So they felt very bad and they began to persecute. So that was actually the earliest form of persecution recorded in the book of Acts, was when the disciples now went to go and heal someone. So they now took Peter and John, which was the leader, if you can get the leader. So it does seem at this time that Peter and John were the most prominent leaders they had there. So you know what you do? When you take out the leader, then you might probably be able to take out the whole group. Just like in the NSAS movement in Nigeria. They wanted to know who is the leader, who is the leader. Say, we don't have a leader. We're just us coming out to whatever. So now they are going after people who gave monies. This the sponsor who gave money, to buy food and every single thing, because our government is cowardly. So being cowardly is not just today. It has always been. Leadership can make you very, very proud. Leadership can make you very, very to become a beast. The same thing that you will do, that you did to get into power, people do it to you, and you are now upset. It's the same. Now I'm going to get very political here. The same. Our president wanted to march under Goodluck Jonathan. He marched in Abuja against his government. Now people want to march against him, and they are now clamping down on them. What they never did to him during Goodluck Jonathan, he's doing it. So you can see that. And it's not just him. It's not him. For him, he might not even want to do that. But he has surrounded himself with people who are greedy, who are selfish, who they know that him being there is their own ticket. And if something's exposed, it's going to affect them. So also you have to watch out the kind of people you surround yourself with. As a leader, you might be good, but you must surround yourself with people who are selfish, who have selfish interests, and they keep pushing you to things that are wrong. So this was the first civil disobedience that the disciples made. So they brought them before the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin is a group of maybe 50 elders. That is the highest decision-making body of the Jews. Now, if you remember what we talked about in the intertestamental period, you find out that the Sanhedrins are made up of mostly Sadducees because they are sad, you see, and some of them are Pharisees. Now, the Pharisees were the one that says, you know what, we must hold on to what the Bible says. I mean, so what the Torah says. The Sadducees were political compromisers. Any government that is in power, they will go. Some of us are like that. Any government you go, you will not say the truth. You want to do follow. Oh, because I don't want to be a bad guy. I don't want to be sad. I don't want to lose my salary, whatever. So even when leaders are wrong, you keep quiet and you call it humility. No, it's humility, but there's a word that comes before that. It's called false humility. So the Sanhedrin, if it's Roman that's ruling, they will just go there. If it's Greek, they will do there. To the point where they begin to deny some of their core values, some of their core doctrine, so that they will not offend their masters, their colonial masters. So they began to deny resurrection. They began to deny hell. They began to deny so many things. But the Pharisees were the ones who are saying, no, we're going to hold on to it. So to make sure that the Pharisees don't gain upper hand, their colonial masters gave them a right that the high priest must always come from the Sadducees. Are you seeing what I'm saying? the high priest will always come from that. So no matter whatever you guys say, the guys on top there will not sign the document. So Peter and John were taken before the Pharisee, and that was the first civil disobedience. They told them, they flogged them, beat them up, say, guys, you must never speak in the name of this man anymore. And Peter looked at them. He said, judge for yourself. Who should we obey? If it's you, should we obey God who is forever? Or is it men that are made of clay? Is it you? He said, no, we're not going to. He said, we cannot stop speaking of what we have seen and heard. So they warned them, don't speak or don't whatever. They went back to the disciples when they were all gathered together. We're like, guys, God has rescued us. And that is where they have that prayer for boldness, which our brother Steve Johnson now translated into a song. Father God, who we seek first, with a cross you kill the cross, and from the grave death you destroy. And you were like, give us boldness. Why do the nations rage? Why are they upset with us? We're not doing anything wrong. Why are people upset with you when you're doing what is right? He said, whatever, consider their threats, consider everything they are doing, give us boldness. And guess what? They went out there and began to preach boldly. That is what disciples do. When you are confronted by evil, you don't cringe by saying, no, you're going to fight with the Spirit of God. Give us boldness. If we die, we'll die. So they went there, and you can see how they were. The Bible said that after finished praying, man, everyone was shaking. They were fired up. They went to the street and go and preach again. Jesus is Lord. Now, as the church began to grow, you find a lot of growth passages. They were growing. See, as you grow, wahala will happen. As a small child is growing, they all envy. As I'm talking right now, I'm feeling itch on my face. A small child will say, I want to have beard. By the time you start growing beard, you have to start shaving. Blades are expensive. Some of them you have bombs. You have to go wherever. So there's what is called teething problem. When a child is growing teeth, the teeth are pushing the gum out. They are trying to make an escape. So in pushing it out, you're going to have pain. And that's why they give them teething powder. It's a form of paracetamol, mild paracetamol, that they give them to actually help them with the pain. So as the church began to grow, they needed resources. They needed palliative. So what they were doing was, some disciples were like, oh, let me give. There was a guy known as Barnabas. He was now known as son of encouragement. Now I will tell you about him. He's from Cyprus. Or is it Phoenicia? Okay, I'm going to get it right now. He's actually of Greek origin, and his father was rich. So this guy now sold some land, and I gave it to the church. Say, hey, what do I need that land for? I have enough. I beg, take John. And people began to give. It caught the attention of two disciples, Ananias and Sapphira. They too, maybe they announced the name of all the big givers. They too want to be a big giver. So they have this small land they bought a long time ago in Ikorodu, or in Takoradi, somewhere in Ghana, or somewhere in Cape Coast, one bush. You don't think where I buy them. Let me go look for them. Okay, church, I have this land in Korodu or in Takoradi or whatever. I'm going to sell it and give to you. Everything I'll give you. So just say, amen, no, that's good. Oh. So they now went to go and look for the land and the buyer. On lo and behold, a land that they thought was 100,000 naira is now 10 million. They say, Kai, 10 million and money, oh. And I promise I'll give everything. So you know what? We are going to give the 10,000 naira and keep the other 9,900,000, naira. So the husband and wife, that is also a class to use for unity. They were very united, but in doing bad, they were united. Even at the threat of death, they didn't talk. So the husband came and said, and then I said, I hereby donate 10,000 naira, or let me say, 1 million Ghana cedi. They clapped. But Peter look at, maybe Peter has some intel. Peter said, where did you say that land is? Not be lucky. Nowhere. How much did you sell the land? Did you really sell that land for that amount? Yes, now, yeah, I saw that. He could have said, my Oga, I sell them, but since I promised 10,000, I'll give 10,000. He said, but why do you lie? Why do you have to lie, bro? Because you want to have your name mentioned, is that all? This is not what we're here for. Boom. And Ananias died. Much later, his wife, who didn't know anything, came in, started singing, come and see that. Maybe she went to the market to go and buy some woodin, to go and buy some lace, and she was whatever. He said, Safi, I better come. How far now? Come. Did you and your husband really sell that land for 10,000 Ghana cedi? Yes, so whatever. Why are you lying to the Holy Spirit? In fact, the men are going to bury your husband are coming now. Boom, she too died. I would say that fear catch the church. In fact, fear catch other people. People that had it, nobody dare join them. But if you go there, if you go lie, Holy Spirit will strike you. But that helped to sanitize the church. But you see, as a church grows, you're going to have issues. The apostles began to be persecuted, in chapter 5. Now in chapter 6, they now began to have structures in the church where they have soup kitchen, where they will distribute food and everything. Now a time came that the Jews who were of Greek origin began to point out that there is partiality in the church. And you see, our brothers and sisters who are leading churches, when you hear things like this, don't be quick to dismiss it. Because of injustice is found anywhere. Injustice can be found anywhere. So they felt that there was injustice in the church. How? When they come to distribute food, when the person from who is Hebrew, when he speak Hebrew language, they'll give up extra. But you are speaking Yoruba, or you are speaking whatever, they'll give you small. It's a pattern. It's like going for a wedding in Nigeria. If you go to a wedding, make sure you go to a wedding where your friend invited you to. Because if your friend invited you to, they will take care of you. They'll have canopy. This canopy for ICOC, this canopy is for this Bible talk, whatever. They will take care of you. The people who are extra, who don't know, they'll be there waiting for food. They will carry food, be passing with food. Meanwhile, they say, serve this food according to how they stay. But they go pass the food, go and give somebody for back because of their friend. Sometimes it happens in our church. So in the early church, it happened. So listen to the wisdom. When the people, they don't say, guys, you guys better be humble. You guys are complaining too much. No. I would say they complain. Complain is not something bad. It's good. So they're like, we notice it's not fair. Peter owned up, say, it's true. In fact, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't even be the one, doing this stuff. The people who complained are the ones that should go and distribute the food. Only one condition: get people who are spiritual. The first, they were not very spiritual. People who are spiritual, who fear God, who are filled with the Holy Spirit. That is the criteria to serve food. Be spiritual, because food, not like money, temptation is always there. Some people will be serving food. I've seen that they will be serving food and they'll be putting the meat one corner. They'll put it in the meat one side so that they will reserve it for themselves. Because we are all selfish. Don't lie to yourself. If you say you're not selfish, we've not touched your mumu, the thing you have. We've not done something to you that will bring your selfishness out. So we have to let people x-ray us. Let people tell us what they are saying. And look at the men that we are appointed. Stephen, Nicholas, Philip. They are all Greek people. They were all solid brothers. The Bible said that the apostles came, they prayed over them, they laid their hands on them, and that was it. They said, but look at what we began saying. Bible said immediately, look at Stephen. Stephen was a historian. Now, some people believe that Stephen must have been one of those disciples that came from Alexandria. This guy spoke like Apollos. He told them the history of the Jews from Abraham to now and convicted the whole crowd. Somebody that was called to go and serve food. He died preaching the word. They were evangelists. They were preachers. They were convicted men, men and women. And for the first time, he was the first disciple that was going to die. And we now, everywhere in the Bible you read, Jesus Christ is seated on the throne. He's looking at what happened. But this time, Jesus Christ just said, wait a minute, man, I need to really stand. Jesus Christ stood up, probably giving him a round of applause. People were like looking at Steve. Steve said, in fact, I see heaven open. And I see the Holy One, standing on his throne. Hey, are you the grace? They now, stone, Stephen. So when Stephen died, it became obvious that there is a wholesale attack on the church. And Paul, who was Saul, was right there. This Benjamite, this fiery Benjamite, was the one who was keeping their clothes. He said, so go and kill that guy, man. Go and kill. I'm here. I send you now. And the apostle said, you know what? I think it is time for everybody to disperse. So how does this dispersal, happen? Jesus Christ sometimes can use things to cause, to fulfill what he wants to happen. Now, Jesus Christ didn't kill Stephen, but he can even use the bad things happening to help us. So this is how the church began to spread. The Bible said that people began to speak to Greeks. They began to speak to Greeks, because they were Greeks, actually. They now began to spread round in the whole place. Let me just quickly jump. Okay, let me just go back. That they now began to go to talk to Greek people and everything. Now, as what's his name? As Philip was going, Philip was going to Caesarea. He was going up north, but he has, remember, from Jerusalem, he had to pass through Samaria. So when he got to Samaria, he now got people who are worshiping this man. This man claimed to be God. He was a magician. He was their own David Copperfield. He was their own David Copperfield. He was claiming to be God, and people were giving them honor, giving him honor and every single thing, until Philip began to preach Jesus Christ's resurrection and began to work miracles. So you see Philip also working miracles. I would say that Stephen also did many miraculous works. So that's why we say it does look like that laying of hand did more than just appoint them into an office. It also impacted on them the miraculous ability that only the apostles had at that time. How do I know? In Acts 2, I would say that many wonders and miraculous signs were done by the apostles. No other person was doing miracles until we get to Acts 7 and Acts 8. So Philip, began to teach. Many people believe, including Simon the sorcerer. In fact, Simon became the assistant Bible talk leader of Philip. The Bible said that he followed him everywhere, but he was intrigued by the miracles. Somehow, nobody else could work miracles apart from Philip. Maybe he has asked Philip, oh boy, come now, how far now? How far will this thing? Philip said, listen, I don't know how the thing just, I don't know, I just they do I don't know how to give them, I don't know how the thing come, I don't know whatever. Okay, just make with the watch you until when news now got to the apostles in Jerusalem. Remember, Jesus Christ told them in Jerusalem, in Judea, in Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. The gospel has spread from Jerusalem to Judea. Now it was now in Samaria. So the apostles had to come and become witnesses. Let's go and be a witness. When they come there, and they, of course, they interviewed them. Wow. So it looks like Samaria too can become saved. And Peter and John now placed hands on them and pray over them, and they now received the that miraculous ability of the Holy Spirit. How do we know? They began to prophesy. Spirit talk. That was when Simon saw it. Someone said, hey. So it is at the laying of the apostles' hand that can get this thing. So the guy just, remove his ATM card. Say, Peter, your POS machine, or make I flash them to you. Give me this gift, so I go pay for it. Peter said, your money perish with you. How can you? How dare you? I call you a disciple. How can you? You have no part in this ministry. This is the apostolic ministry. It's not for you. Only the apostles. It's a prayer that God will forgive you for having such a thought. Can you be thinking like this, bro? Hey, your thought don't collo. What did Simon do? Simon didn't say, oh, I repented. Simon said, I beg, pray for me that all these things you say will not happen to me. People are more scared of curses than that they are more diligent of doing what is right. If you tell somebody, go and read your book, I'm not going to read. You go fail, I don't go fail. That's what happens to us. James, Peter and John now went to that place. Now, in the book of Acts, chapter 8, God now gave us an insight, to another person. Remember, this thing is going to the ends of the earth. The Ethiopian eunuch. And that was why, remember, Philip was traveling from Jerusalem. He was going up, he passed through Samaria, still going up. Then he has waka far. God has said, Philip, your job is not done. No. Can you please just take a left turn and take the road going down? Because that's what the Bible uses. When the Bible says up, we are going up to Jerusalem. We are going down to so going down, we have to go down to Gaza. That road goes down. What am I doing? Just keep going. Don't worry. But the place far. Just keep going. So as he was going, he now saw a man who was riding a chariot. He intercepted the man. The Spirit now said, that is him. Go and stay near that chariot. So he ran to the chariot and he had him reading Isaiah. And he asked him, excuse me, sir, do you understand what you're reading? How can I, unless somebody explains to me? Really? Do you know it? I know it now. I was trained in these things. Oh yeah, come on. Boom. As they were traveling along the road, the eunuch saw water and says, here, there is water. Why shouldn't I be baptized? And so both eunuch and Philip went down into the water. He didn't sprinkle him. He didn't pour on him into the water. And when he came out, the Holy Spirit said, oh boy, you've done your job. I don't want to go and trek back. I'll give you express, BRT. You land to where you are going. And of course, many Ethiopians believe that it was true that Ethiopian, eunuch, that they were able to have the gospel in Ethiopia. The next conversion is a major one. That is Paul in Acts chapter 9. Paul became a disciple. In Acts 9. Acts 9 was written from the viewpoint of Luke. Luke was explaining to us this is how Paul became a disciple. Now let me banner break here. Let me just slow down and talk about Paul. Now, if you look at the book of Galatians, it gives you a more idea of what just happened here. Now, the Bible said that Paul was struck blind. People also believe that it was that brilliance of that light made him blind, which is what the Bible said. People felt that light became a thorn in his flesh. And that's why he affects his eyesight many times. He cannot see very well. Sometimes it goes dizzy. So people say maybe it gave him epilepsy, a shock, everything, whatever. We don't know. But Paul told us that it was a thorn in his flesh, and agent of Satan. He had been, God, please remove this thing from me. God said, no. My grace is enough for you. Everybody became afraid of Paul. The Pharisees, so not afraid of Paul, every disciple became afraid of Paul. The disciples never believed that Paul actually converted. How can this man just convert? The man that was killing us, just killing Stephen, now he says he's a disciple, even an apostle. It's not possible. So Paul became a disciple. When the Bible said that Paul got up, was baptized, and got up and began to preach, that got up was a period of 3 years. You see that there was that getting up is 3 years. It's like the story of Abraham. When Abraham, told his servant Eliezer, oh yeah, bring your hand, put on my thigh, swear that you will not go and bring any yeye girl for my child. You must go back to Mesopotamia, where my in-laws, my family, go and get a wife. Then from just after that line, you now see a line again that Eliezer went there, and of course, Rebecca, was brought. Then Isaac now took Rebecca into his mother's tent. You never heard about Abraham again. Why? Abraham has died. It just looks like between the time that Eliezer went to go and get the wife, and before he came back, Abraham had died. So you have to read between the lines. So when the Bible said that Paul from that time began preaching, not immediately, 3 more years, Paul had to run for his life. The Christians would not welcome him. The Pharisees were after him. The Jews went to kill him. The only place he was saved was in the east. He went to the Middle East. He went to Jordan to go and hide. The second place again where he was safer for him, at least when he has come down, he now went to Tarsus. Tarsus was his hometown. That was why he was known as Paul of Tarsus. Now, let me give you a rewind about that place called Tarsus. Tarsus was one of those cities that actually supported Rome when Rome was fighting against Greece. When Rome was going to conquer Greece, Tarsus was one of the people that gave them intel. They gave them intelligence, information. They were able to harbor some of them, and they took their life into their hands. That means that if that gamble had failed, of course, you know what's going to happen. They're going to come and kill everybody there. So how did Rome reward Tarsus, that town, that place? They now gave them a gift, the most important gift. They said, from now on, for what you guys have done for us, from now on, every child that is born here automatically becomes a Roman citizen. That was how Paul became a Roman citizen. You'll find out that when they were beating Paul, and Paul was like, are you going to beat a Roman, whatever? You guys say, which kind of Roman? Do you think it's easy? Do you know how much I bought my citizenship? Paul said, I didn't buy mine. I was born a Roman. Listen, today you can buy American citizenship today. You can buy Ghanaian citizenship. You can buy Canadian citizenship by investments. And you go online, you see it. If you can invest XYZ millions of dollars, they give you citizenship. So a lot of people bought citizenship of Rome. But Paul said, I was born Roman. So from that time, we're going to have a pause. Then we're going to now look at the ends of the world was in Acts chapter 10. And that happened when Peter was going his world round, visiting the churches, and he now went to a place, Joppa, by the sea, and they were like, Peter, thank God say you come. What happened? Hey, why are you crying? Look at this sister. Sister Tabitha, don't die. Dorcas, they call them Dorcas. Dorcas, look at this shirt, now make up. Look at that skirt, now make up. She's a widow, whatever. Peter said, wow, this must be a very good woman. Where is she? At the upper room, lying in state. Okay, boy, leave us. Dorcas, stand up. And Dorcas woke up. And there was whole joy. The whole place was joy. Like, Peter, you're not going to go today. You must chop before you go. Are you hungry? Actually, I'm hungry. So Peter went to go and wait on the roof. While they're preparing the food, he fell into his trance. God was going to convert Peter. So if Acts chapter 10 is actually the conversion of Peter, 10 years had passed, not because it's Acts chapter 10, but chronologically it's actually 10 years. 10 years has passed, and Peter was preaching to Jews in Jerusalem, Jews in Judea, Jews everywhere, but he was not preaching to Gentiles. Peter didn't have that conviction. So sometimes today as disciples, we know some things. We know the Lord said it, but we never start to do them. And God had to convict Peter to go and do the seemingly impossible. Peter even defiled himself by entering the house of a tanner. You can see dead animals hanging everywhere. Somebody who makes leather, whatever, that is already defiled. Then Peter now entered the house of a gentleman. He was defiled again. But of course, he was smart. He didn't go alone. He took some 6 or 12 others with him to go with him. When he went back to Jerusalem, not these people, they are called the Judaizers. They were the pressure group. They were the cabals in those days. And every church has their own, believe it or not. These guys were the Judaizers. Say, how can we come and share the kingdom of God with all these Gentiles? Okay, if they're going to come in, they must first become Jew before becoming Christian. That means every Gentile must get circumcised first, keep all our law, our Sabbath law, our food law before they can become a Christian. And they were very strong. Mostly, poor people don't do that. They're usually the rich people, the most influential people. In chapter 11, when Peter went back, they criticized him sharply. How dare you? Peter said, look at Peter now. Not be my fault. I don't do anything, As I was speaking. Holy Spirit just came on us. As it came on them, as it came on us in the beginning. They were like, okay, it makes sense. That means that if God can give them the same Holy Spirit that he gave us who believe just at the beginning, that means they can come disciples. That was the official declaration of evangelization proclamation for the Gentiles. Now it was official, doesn't mean that everything has gone well for every single person. In chapter 12, Peter was in jail, and it's very funny story. Peter, when he was in jail, they were praying for Peter, having an all-night prayer for Peter. God, please release Peter, help Peter, because they were going to try him the following day. In the morning, they were going to kill him. They were praying, and the angel of the Lord just came and said, Peter, stand, and let's go. Everybody sleep. Are you sure? Follow me. The gate, they open. When Peter said, this one a dream, God just encouraging me. But when Peter come pinch himself, that's my own version. Peter come and said, he said, no be dream, not true. He now ran to the house of John Mark. He now ran to that place. And I'm going to tell them, and he was there. Boom, 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 boom. Rhoda. What did the house girl say? Rhoda, I don't hear what. We are praying. Go and look at who's at the door. Rhoda went there. Who there? He was late in the night. Who is there? I don't know my voice again. Yes, Uncle Peter Dedo. Uncle Peter Dedo. Rhoda, are you crazy? Keep quiet. You see Peter when they prison, when they pray for that. Now, Uncle Peter now, until Peter was boom, boom, open door now. The open door, and lo and behold, it was Peter. Sometimes you are praying for a miracle happens in your life, and you still do not recognize it. Think about that. So Peter was released from prison, and from there, you now began to hear about how the commissioner began. So it makes sense in Acts 11 that all of us know. You know that passage? Then Barnabas went to Tarsus to go and look for Saul. They look for him. They had to send the sort of an encouraging guy who can understand. He's not insecure about Paul. Barnabas was already a prophet. He was already a teacher. But he had to go and look for. He said, if I'm going to do well in my ministry, I need somebody who knows the Bible more. And he was not insecure. So some leaders are insecure. They don't want anybody who is smart. So they surround themselves with people who are, oh yes, master, oh yes, sir. Anything you say, awesome. And that's why your church is not growing. That's why we're not growing. Because you need some people to challenge our thinking faculty. So at that point, Barnabas went to Tarsus group for Saul. Then he brought it, he introduced Saul to his church in Antioch. Yeah, this is my church where there were teachers, preachers, prophets. Antioch was a blessed church. It was in Antioch that the evangelization of the Roman world actually began. And that was the same church where you have this prophet named Agabus. Agabus was that man who went, this strange guy who went and removed the belt of Paul and now tied himself in one corner. Agabus, what are you doing? He said, the owner of this belt, now so then go tie him if you go to Jerusalem. Is that not Peter's Paul's belt? Paul will just come here. Paul will encourage you. Paul, please don't go. Paul said, you are making me sad. Don't you know that I want to die? But you know they'll kill in Jerusalem. They're looking for you. We are not protecting you here. He said, if possible, make I die. Paul had that conviction. So that was why they now prayed for Barnabas and Saul and said, no, we're going to send you guys out to go. And they began to travel. They went to a place like Iconium. From there to Lystra, from Lystra to Derbe, from Derbe to, from Derbe, that there was now a report that they sent back to Jerusalem. It was in Acts 15 that Paul now went to Jerusalem. So let's go and have a council. Now, from that time on, you will hear that, and Paul traveled from here to here, from here to here. And it was in Jerusalem they now decided, you know what? I think Paul is okay. I think Paul, and of course, remember what Agabus said? Agabus said it's going to be famine everywhere. So there was famine everywhere. And that was when Paul, when the famine hit, Paul was now collecting money from churches that he has planted and was taking it back to the guys in Jerusalem. That was his second visit back to Jerusalem. But now they began to now spread, the gospel everywhere. So right now, okay, Paul, we'll focus on the Gentiles. Let us focus on the Jews. Sometimes as a church, we can do that. Let's put round pegs in round holes and square peg in square hole. Sometimes out of our own ignorance, out of our own bad belly, we put the wrong people in the wrong place. I was still asking why church is not growing. So they now say, okay, Paul, you seem to be very good at this stuff. You have a Roman name, you're a Roman citizen, and you have all these Roman guys around your boy. Carry go, Joe. We're not going to be intimidated by you in any way. Paul now began to call young men around him. Timothy, Titus, Silas, Epaphras, Secundus, all those young guys. And they were all Greek. You see, I'm going to take Greek, Greek people and go and train them. But in the first missionary journey that they were going, they had a vision of this man from Macedonia. Macedonia. That's Acts 16. Now, the most famous figure in history, that comes from that, Macedonia is Alexander the Great. Now, historically, we also found out that is where Dr. Luke comes from. He was Greek. People believe that vision that Paul had about, the man from Macedonia calling us, let's go there. That also shows us that when you are planting a church, don't just target cities. It's okay, but target where are people who are open. Sometimes we leave people who are open. This place is open. We'll plant church there. What about plant church in a big city? And that's why we spend money, we'll spend whatever, we'll hire hall. Meanwhile, people are open somewhere in one village who can convert 300,000 people. So if you look at the book of Acts, they didn't go city by city. They went to where people were. When they see people, boom, that's how they're going to start the church. From there on, it now moved from Paul and his companion went to ABCD. It now went to we. If you look at chapter 16, verse 11, you now see things like from Troas, we put out to see. Who is that we? That man from Macedonia had come to join them. He's the one that was writing all these things down. He now said we. And what also found out that when they got to Philippi, in a place, the guy stopped there and they continued because recently that he stayed in the church in Philippi, and history, some legend have that he married Lydia. So that we married Lydia, and they were there. So from there went to Thessalonica, from there to Berea, from Berea to Athens. The Artemis, the queen of the of the Ephesian people. They say that statue fell from heaven. It is true. It's called a meteor. Meteors fall from heaven. They are worshiped. Just like the one in Saudi Arabia, that one too fell from heaven. So they became the moon god. So today they will say, La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, Allahu Akbar. That's what they are doing to the moon god. And you have to face where that statue is. Maybe when we're doing apologetics, I'm going to be telling you more about that. From there, they went to Corinth. And from Corinth, they now met with Priscilla and Aquila. That was where they were now. From there, they went to Ephesus. They were now comparing what they had learned. And from Ephesus, there was a riot in Ephesus. That Artemis and whatever, there was a riot there. So Paul said, if you want to see where I caused trouble, go to Ephesus, they will tell you. Go to Thessalonica, now there I caused riots. I didn't cause riots in Jerusalem. So think about how the gospel began to flow. This way you now begin to see those churches around. It was in Galatia when Peter came to visit Galatia. Peter came and he was having fun with. I was like, Paul, this church don't grow. Man, Gentiles can rock. Man, I like their music, man. Yo, man, go shorty. It's your birthday. They were dancing and whatever. Immediately the brass from Jerusalem come. Hey, Peter said, hey, they don't catch me. Peter go, hey, bro, okay. All right, let's all go ahead. And they do social distancing. Those guys were very powerful. Those Judaizers, they were rich, they were powerful. Peter also was, couldn't stop them. Peter couldn't confront them. Sometimes some people become very stubbornly powerful in our church. Leaders cannot confront them, maybe because they are rich or maybe because they have influence. Even Peter couldn't confront them. And because of that, Barnabas was also led astray by Peter's hypocrisy. So the youngest apostle, Paul, was like, wait, what's happening? Peter, Kilode, we're not the one that was dancing and eating pork or eating whatever and doing, you are doing shaku shaku, you are doing like this. Now, I want to see that you're not going to say, he said, what you're doing is wrong. Even Barnabas, nice guy, Barnabas, was led astray. Peter, you're not even a good Jew. Let me be the Jew. I'm a Pharisee of Pharisees. I'm a Benjamite. I learned this. You, not be you. Which school you go, sir? Ordinary on school man like you. Come on, man, repent. So you can see what happened there. So he said the Bible is real. Here you also hear you also read about the problem that happened between Paul and Barnabas. They went on their first missionary journey and they took John Mark. You remember John Mark, the same guy who wrote the book of Mark? John Mark, they took John Mark, but John Mark, after a while, John said, I know it's too hard though. John Mark ran away. He said, I know do again, they go. He deserted them. On their second journey, Barnabas said, okay, John Mark, are you ready? Let's go. Paul said, John who? The same Mark. I beg, he can't follow us. Why? No, but the same guy went on away that last time. Let's take him now. Come on, man. He's not ready yet. Let him go. Let's take him. We'll take him. Why are you taking? Okay, you take him and go your way. I'll take somebody else and go another way. Why did Barnabas insist on taking John Mark? Now, leaders are of different types. There are leaders who are more accommodating. And there are some leaders who are more stricter. So obviously, that Barnabas with his character is more accommodating and everything. But beyond that time, John Mark was Barnabas's cousin. Barnabas was the uncle of John Mark. And where they were going, Cyprus, Cyrene, whatever, that was their country. But that's why where he wanted to go. He took him and went to their village. And so Paul now said, who will I take? There was a prophet in that church, Silas. Look what the Bible said. The Bible said that the church commended Silas to Paul. That means that the church also felt that it shouldn't be John Mark that should go. It should be Silas is the guy, whatever. He said, what does that tell us? That means that as leaders, we can also be emotional. We can take emotional decisions. So who was right? Was it Paul that was right or that? None of them. It's just we are human beings. Whatever you do is okay. It is not scriptural. Sometimes we want to label this on ourselves. So the church felt that Silas is the guy. But if you look at the story, down those Paul's dying days, you see what he wrote. He now wrote, I said, send me John Mark. John Mark has been a help. That means everybody needs time to grow. So John Mark, when he had matured, he could now understand. So they never had a misunderstanding because of that. So For in verse 21, Paul had gone back to Jerusalem. Of course, what did he go and do? He went to go and bring gifts. And that was the gifts that the thief, I would like to call him a thief. The governor heard that he brought gifts and he wanted Paul to bribe him. That's why he left him in prison. So Paul was left in prison from one governor to another. So it was when this new guy now showed up in Acts. They now called Paul and said, Paul, come and tell us what you're talking about. You know, say, listen, man, King Agrippa, I know you believe the gospel. Do you know? Don't worry, I know you believe. Can say, hey, stop. Do you think that in such a short time you can persuade me, a whole king, to become a Christian? Paul said, short or long, that is not the issue, but that everybody here will become just like me. That was the second time that the word Christian was used in the Bible. First time was in Acts 11. Disciples of Paul said Antioch, where Paul and Barnabas launched, and of course, before the king, and they left Paul in jail. In chapter 23, we see Paul before the sign. Paul said, so the guy said, okay, let him talk to his people. Maybe they will understand him. As Paul was speaking, the high priest said, slap him, John. He slapped him. Paul said, God will slap you too. You whitewashed too. And he said, hey, now is it the priest you're talking to, the high priest? Paul said, hey, nah. Okay, I didn't know he was a high priest. So then Paul used some diplomacy. Paul said, I didn't know it was high priest. So because I know that our law says, don't speak bad about people who are over you. Your rulers of your land, don't speak bad of them. You know what Paul was saying? Paul was saying, you guys are speaking bad about the Jews, about the Romans, speaking about whatever, and you say, I don't speak about. You two are committing same sin. So Paul's communication skill is just incredible. So, so he was put on trial in Acts 24. Felix, didn't, allow him go until some years. Felix, but they do it turn by turn. The Caesar will send you to go and be, a governor. And when you're there, as a governor, you make your money, you make whatever. That's why you have Pontius Pilate, you have Felix, you now have Festus. Festus was the one that went to now go and bring. Okay, let me bring the king. Oh boy, Agrippa. Let's talk about this guy. And of course, he too did not become a disciple. They said, well, we don't know what we're going to do to this guy. Paul said, then send me to Rome. They look at this and said, well, want to go to Rome? Thank God, though. Then to Rome, you must go. And that was how Paul began his long journey to Rome. And he went through the island because he was a prisoner of war. I was a prisoner, and they put him on a straight this thing. Of course, they had a shipwreck, and there was a storm. By the time he hit chapter 27, there was this big storm. The story is fantastic. They now came to a place called Malta, not Malta, Guinness. It's an island offshore of Mediterranean, so it's still there till today. When they arrived there, they thought he was a god because snake, but held on to him, and the venom of a snake is found in the teeth. So normally when a snake bites you, the venom goes in. So they're waiting for Paul to die, to just begin to, it's hard to stop eating because the venom will coagulate his blood. But Paul didn't die. Paul just shook the snake to the fire. They were like, go soon die, go soon die. When Paul didn't die, they began to worship him. Paul said, I am only but a man. The book of Acts ended in chapter 28. Now, you are free to believe what you want to believe about Acts. Some people believe that book of Acts is actually a legal letter written to a group of people, we might call them the jury, who are supposed to decide the case of Paul. And it was written because it was very orderly, just like Luke. The book of Luke gave them, this is what Jesus Christ began to do, this is what he did, and this is what the apostles did, focusing on Paul now. And look at how he ended. He never ended, actually. The book of, and it's a style of writing. You end without ending. The writer of this book wanted to end in a very positive note, and that was where he ended the book here in chapter 20. I'm going to read it, chapter 2 to 28. Let me read from verse 17. It said 3 days later he called together the leaders of the Jews. That's in Rome. Where Paul was in Rome. He was living in his own house, a rented house. He was in house arrest. He called his the fellow leaders who were Jews. When he has assembled, Paul said to them, my brothers, although I have done nothing against our people or against the custom of our ancestors, I was arrested in Jerusalem and handed over to the Romans. They examined me and wanted to release me because I was not guilty of any crime deserving death. But when the Jews objected, I was compelled to appeal to Caesar. Not that I had any charge, to actually bring a break against my own people. For this reason, I have asked to see you and to talk with you. It is because of the hope of Israel that I am bound in chains. They replied, we have not received any letter from Judea concerning you, and none of the brothers, who have come from there has reported or said anything about you. But we want to hear what your views are. For we know that people everywhere are talking about this sect, this group, this Jesus group. We know, but let's hear from you. They arranged to beat Paul on a certain day and came in even larger numbers to the place where he was staying, from morning till evening. It was a long Bible talk. If you guys think I preach long sermons, wait until you come and hear Paul. From morning till evening, he explained and declared to them the kingdom of God and tried to convince them about Jesus from the law of Moses, from the prophets. Some were convicted, convinced by what he said. Others would not believe. They disagreed amongst themselves. They began to argue, and began to leave after, after Paul had made his final statement. He said, the Holy Spirit spoke the truth to your fathers when he said, through Isaiah, the prophet, go to the people and say, you will be ever hearing, but never understanding. You will be ever seeing, but never perceiving. For these people's hearts have become callous. They hardly hear with their ears, and they have closed their eyes. Otherwise, they might see, they might see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their heart, turn, and I will heal them. Therefore, Paul concludes, therefore, I want you to know that God's salvation has been sent to, boom, he said that word, Gentiles. They don't want to hear that word. So he sent out to Gentiles, and they will listen. See, that's why you read the book of Romans. You now see the Gentile dichotomy they have there. See, the Gentiles will listen for 2 whole years. Think about it. He had already been in prison for 1 year over there, whatever year. For 2 whole years, Paul stayed there in his own rented house, welcomed all who came to see him. Boldly and without hindrance, he preached the kingdom of God and taught about Jesus. I thought about the Lord Jesus Christ. That's how the book of Acts ends, brothers and sisters. Why did he have that ending? One, anybody who reads this book and stops here and ends here will say, "Wow, man, the gospel is powerful." Paul was free. Nobody could actually, whatever. He never talked about Paul dying. He never talked about Paul in whatever way. He ended the story in a very positive note. So that anybody, anywhere disciples read this story, they will never be discouraged. Even right now, as we're looking through that story right now, it's to give us hope. Even when he was bound, in his character, whatever, people will come freely. Let the whole world know we must speak freely. Even the Roman Empire did not stop Paul from speaking. Even the Jewish community also was saying Paul could speak freely. The only thing is that he was in one place. People were coming every day. He was, speaking to them. But why 2 years? There's a law that says you cannot keep a Roman, without a trial for more than 3 years. You can't do that. So adding that one there could be that if you are going to read it, if you ever are reading this thing, you know that if there's anybody who have sinned, it is people who have handed Paul to be judged. They have kept him without trial. The gospel is not on trial here. It is the people who are actually on trial. And you're going to see some things that you wonder, why is this thing here? What I do is I use my own imagination. Why will Luke introduce Philip? Haven't called him an evangelist. And I say, oh, Philip, who is from here, he had 4 daughters who prophesied. I mean, why would he? So what? So the prophets were. What if, remember, Philip is also a companion of those guys. What if Philip called this guy and say, hello, look, how far now? You see the right? Oh, by the right. So they finish. Where are you now? Oh, I'm writing that our story. Whatever. I beg. Do the work. DT, heart and soul. You don't know where this place. Hey, please help me write them there. Say, I get this awesome daughters now. They find husband. Put them there. Say they be awesome disciple. So anyway, they read this and they're going to say, I get 4 girls. We marryable 4 girls. That is just my own interpretation. You see, as you read, just enjoy it. And that was the the Antioch explosion. And we are grateful that today we can still read that story. That story is not a sad story. That story is not a story that's going to make us go run and hide. That story is a story of victory. So when you read Acts, you can understand the rest of the books, that the letters of the New Testament. Thank you for listening. God bless you incredibly. I know we've shot about 8 minutes beyond our our time. But at this point, I'm going to stop, and we're going to see if we can take responses or questions and answers. Thank you. You can actually unmute yourself now. That's if you guys are not sleeping.
Thank you so much, Uncle.
Thank you so much, Uncle. Thanks.
All right. So, what do you guys think? You can do this. I didn't have a script for this. I didn't have any script. I don't have PowerPoint for this. Everything I've been talking for the past over 1 hour is just, it's just, you have to just know what the Bible is saying. All I just have is open my Bible here, and you can tell, the story. So know the flow. So as you are teaching it, just know the flow of the gospel. So raise up your hand. Charlie, Bill, your hand is up first. Charlie, we'll go ahead. Let's see if we can answer some questions before we turn off our YouTube streaming. Charlie Bill. Then after Charlie, Keme. Please speak loudly so that I can hear you, Charlie. You're welcome.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much for the class today. I really want to ask, like, most from those areas here.
I can't hear you well. I don't know.
Wow.
Can you speak louder a bit? Maybe it's from me. I don't know. Go again. Try again.
I can't hear him clearly too.
Let me see.
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Please go ahead.
Hello?
Please go ahead.
Yeah, Uncle.
Yes.
So the question I have is those areas that we are most late Christian dominated, like Damascus and other parts of Syria. Why is it that, of course, now
Hello? We lost you there.
we have those areas being dominated? Where is that?
Okay, so why are most those areas more Muslim now? If that's your question, I think. Exactly. Okay.
Yes.
Very good question. Now, for an extended answer of that question, I will want you to hold on a bit. By God's grace, early next year, first quarter of next year, one of the things we're going to be taking is history. We're going to be taking a class of history, and sadly, I'm going to be telling you the sad story of how Islam became the dominant religion of places that was a birthplace of Christianity. Islam is not the dominant religion. It's a sad story. Okay, so that's just that. Keme, let's hear you, Keme.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Uncle Emmanuel. My question is, like, I need a clarification, because when you were introducing the New Testament books, at some point you made mention, I don't know if you can hear me, you made mention of Paul the Apostle not being in Rome, or not being, I think the way you put it is, Paul didn't evangelize the people, the disciples in Rome. I think you used that word. I might not be saying it precisely, but then later you refer to Irenaeus. Yes, later you refer to Irenaeus, which is like a valid write-up of an older disciple. And then in that write-up, you will mention that Peter and Paul were in Rome, and I'm sure for them to be in Rome, they're probably doing the work of the ministry. So I don't know. I need clarification with that, because
Okay, this is how I'll answer your question. That's a very good question, by the way. If you look at this map here, the green map indicates people that were present on the day of Pentecost. Remember, all those people, they spread out. And many of them, remember in Acts chapter 2, verse 5 said, and there was present in Jerusalem that day Jews from every nation under heaven. And it mentioned all their names. Some of them were from Rome. So we would like to believe that these people, when they went back, a lot of them took the gospel with them as they were going. By the time you get to Acts chapter 8, chapter 7, chapter 8, like Philip, they began to go. Because when Paul was writing the letter to the Romans, he had not visited Rome. Paul was saying that he longed to be with them. Eventually, Paul, when it was ambition to just go down to Rome. Now, Peter obviously also was in Rome, and the Catholics believe that the St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, that Peter was buried there. That was where Peter was buried. So Peter was crucified upside down in Rome. Peter was crucified upside down in Rome. But Paul was not the one who planted the church in Rome. The churches that Paul planted, you see them in the book of Acts of the Acts of Apostles. While he was planting those churches, he was longing to go to Rome, and he said he wants to encourage the disciples of Rome. People who were already in Rome were people like Priscilla and Aquila. When the edicts came from from Caesar, they're just like, we say everybody go back to your own country. So people like Priscilla and Aquila, they had to go back. They didn't find themselves in Corinth. They found themselves in Corinth, and Paul was not there with them, in Corinth. So Paul did not plant the church there, and from all indication there, the closest that Paul had with them, Paul invited people to come and be seeing him, because he went there as a prisoner. They didn't allow him to go to church, so to speak. So the church was coming, to him. And now, there are two stories. The first story is that after the book of Acts, and after they've tried the case of Paul and found out that he didn't do anything wrong, they released him. But they arrested him again, and that was when he was beheaded. Some people even say that, oh, no, maybe they released Paul as an old man, and Paul now went to go and get married. And we tried to. Then afterwards, they now took him again and killed him. So we are trying to look for a happy ending, to his life. At least something good must happen in his life. But there's a story I find very fascinating. Some people believe that Paul was married before. Now there's no proof. Was probably married before, because at his age and a Jew, he's supposed to be married. He was married. Maybe his wife died at childbirth, and so because of that, he was traumatized. Maybe that was a thorn in his flesh. That was a vision he kept hearing. I mean, the nightmare he kept having about his wife's dying and every single thing. So he now said he's not going to marry again. So when he said he was going to marry, he now adopted young men, and that's why he was calling them my son. Like, Timothy, you're my son. Like, people have that. And to back that up, let me ask you guys a question. Anybody can unmute, answer a question. Which Bible writer wrote the most about marriage and parenting? Which Bible writer wrote the most? Anybody know? Just unmute and answer. Which Bible writer wrote the most about marriage? Paul. Okay, thank you. Everybody's Paul actually.
Yes, Apostle Paul, uncle.
Exactly, Paul. How did it marriage? Nobody else wrote about marriage or Paul. Anyway, that's just an hypothesis, just a hypothesis. So when I read the Bible this way, it just makes the Bible. You don't want to stop. You begin to imagine. You begin to open up more ideas, and that's what makes your Bible study very, very fun. So there's a lot I can tell you actually about some of the ideas I have and some of the things I've read and some of the things I know. So let's take Rotimi, maybe the final question right now. Rotimi Awaye.
Thank you so much, Uncle.
All right, thank you very much, sir. My question is actually springing out from a question someone in my ministry asked me based on the church establishing as regards the Daniel vision in Daniel about the statue and all. Long story short, so he was trying to say that the part that talked about the materials of iron and clay that did not mix, he said because the clay there, it seems to be a very different material from the gold, silver, and bronze and all those things. Then the clay is like natural and it's symbolic for when God creates things. So in other words, he was trying to say that the clay there is like the establishment of the church, and like clay would not mix with iron, that was the same way clay, the church did not mix even with the kingdoms that was established at the time. Then the rock that came to now shatter everything is the second coming of Jesus Christ that would now eventually take over the world. Now, that didn't seem to fit in all that I know. I was trying to explain to him because it only simply raised a lot of questions, about, so are you trying to say the church has not been established? Again, these was questions I was asking. Again, I've not really given him answers clearly because I actually even referred that we should even speak with you on it. So I don't know, sir, if you can probably give some a bit more explanation on this, particularly with how the church was established in Acts and how it spread out. That's, I don't know if you really understood.
Question. Thank you for asking the question. Obviously, we don't have time to do all that. I would love to, but I will refer you a bit to the intertestamental study that we did. And hey, anybody can have, what people normally do, what we do sometimes, and I'm not saying this to mock anyone. Sometimes people go and get an idea, a doctrine. Then they want to now force the Bible into it. Now, let me tell you up front, the second coming of Jesus based on the Bible does not sound or look like anything pre-millennialists say. And we're going to do Revelation. We're going to start Revelation, so we're going to talk about those stuff. Premillennialism says that Jesus Christ is going to come back and reign on this earth for 1,000 years and whatever. There's no way in the Bible. You cannot justify that in the Bible. Now, if Daniel chapter 2 is foggy, try reading Daniel chapter 6 and 9, because he actually identified those nations. Daniel was a prophet to the nations to go and tell them what he prophesied, about all these elements. So Jesus Christ did not come to destroy his church. And again, when you talk about a mixture, say the people is a kingdom. Remember, the head of gold was the only kingdom that was identified in Daniel 2. By the time you go down to Daniel 9, however, they identify the second kingdom and the third kingdom. They identify from Babylon, to Persia, then to Greece. They identify, and they use different animals, to do that. And he was telling them about the nations that are going to come and really trample the earth until the coming of the Messiah. Or the coming Messiah. And that's why Jesus Christ will say, from the time of John the Baptist till now, the kingdom of heaven has suffered violence, and violent men try to lay hold of it. Those are the violent people. All kinds of people have been trying to come. So think about the division is not about the statue, it's just about the rock. He said the fourth kingdom is a mixture, and that perfectly fits with Rome. Now, if you have read, there's a video I give out to you guys, Romulus and Remus. Now, it's done in Greek, in classical Greek, but it's a good movie. It's very exciting to actually watch. So it came up just as a settlement, going to gather. That's how they grew, and then they began to now fight against Greece. They now began, fighting against, Greece, and they conquered Greece, and then the Bible said at the time of those kings, God will set up a kingdom. So those other ones were the kingdom of men. And those ones, whatever, the Bible said that is the meaning of the vision of the rock. It's not about the statue, it's about the rock. The rock that comes, it smash all those things and grow. There is no something about second coming or whatever. So where was the first coming of Jesus Christ then? Did he come? Where did he come? And it's not significant in those statues. So again, there's a lot of people that people are rereading, and I think we should read. I want people to read. I want people to expand their knowledge and whatever. But let us read. You cannot talk about Islam if you've not read the Quran. Many of the disciples have not read the Bible. They've not finished the Bible. Some of us say, I doubt if some of us have finished the entire Bible. Can you tell me the story of every book in the Bible? Can you tell me the import of every book? There's a reason for every book. So if I'm going to go and argue with somebody who is a Hindu, whatever, and I don't even know my own, so anything that they bring in, basically come. And how come none of the apostles preach this gospel they're talking about right now? So it's not consistent with the Bible. It's a nice idea, but it's not consistent with the Bible. That's what I'm going to say. By the time we now go down to Revelation, we probably maybe I will do a special class called the Man of Sin. I'll probably do a special class from Daniel and 2 Timothy. I'll do the Man of Sin. I did that class to a private group just this year. I can expand it and do it also. Antichrist, the Man of Sin. By the time you tell them that the word Antichrist is only used in 1st, 2nd John and 3rd John, they were like, okay, what about the Man of Sin? I'll do that one for you also. Or what about the one about Daniel? I'll do that one for you again also. But you see that you want to learn, or you just want to go after sensationalism, So that's what I'm going to say. We are going to close now because I had meant for the Q&A to just be maybe 20, 30 minutes max. It's just about 20, 23 minutes at this time. If you want to relive this episode again, it's already on YouTube. You can the link is there. You download the link and go through it again. If you have any question, you can post a question on our the WhatsApp group, the MTA WhatsApp group. We have a general one that most of you belong to. There's also one by the Ghana disciples. I'm also part of that group, so you can post it there. Let's just learn. I also want to encourage you guys. I know some of you, a few, just very small of you, have not submitted your scripts. Just very few. Please submit your script. Let me know if there's something we can do. If you need more time, if you need like today, I sent out audio. I had to compress the Bible project video. I put them into MP3 audio, and I now send the link out. So maybe I'll do the same thing also for all of us. I'll send the link. So in case you are finding it hard to download everything, I'll put them in audio, send it to you. You can now download it and go through it. Listen, I just want you guys to just learn. Passing is secondary, but I want you guys to learn. I want you guys to be men of God who will be confident to answer questions, at least the basic questions. Who will be confident to want to study more. Don't do church and not study. Bible says present yourself. I know we are busy, we are doing church, we are preaching, whatever. How can you be preaching when you are not equipping yourself? What are you teaching people? Let your schooling, this MTA, let it be part of your ministry responsibility. Put it in your calendar, morning, afternoon, night. Morning, afternoon, night. It's part of your quiet time. You are reading the New Testament survey. You are listening to the video. You can't be a preacher when you're not listening to, you're not being fed. In the afternoon, you have 1 hour, listen to it. In the evening, when you are preparing Bible discussion like I do, use it for Bible discussion. Use it for your sermon. Use it for, that's how you can grow. Don't be a doctor who doesn't want to study to learn new things. I will not go to that kind of a doctor who is not updating himself. So this is not outside your ministry. This training is part of your ministry. I told this, if you need to take 1 day off, write to your church leader, oh, I need 1 day off to do my exam and read whatever. It's part of your ministry. I want you to learn. Wake up early in the morning, read your Bible. Read it like food, So please, so those of you who have lagged behind, please, especially in Ghana, please, we can do it together. I want to help all of you. I want you all to do, and those of you who have done it, encourage one another. That's why we have those groups. Group Alpha, Beta, Echo, Delta, all of them. Encourage one another. Let's share thoughts. Okay, let's make sure that everybody succeed together. That is what the MTA is all about. I'm taking it too. Why? Because I just want to keep learning. Even when I know it, I just want to keep learning and learning and learning again and again until you can do what I'm doing. I can open the Bible, literally. I can open the Bible and preach from any book, any chapter, any verse. I've done it many times. I just open it, just try me any whatever. I will tell you the story idea. I learned it from Jacoby many years ago. He will tell us to call any chapter in the Bible and he will tell you what is there. Any verse, he will tell you what is there. And so not any chapter, he will tell you what is there. I want to be like that. I want to be able to stand up like Stephen and just preach the word. I want to be able to stand up like the apostle and just declare why I believe what I believe in. And I want all of us to be like that. None of us are going to become teachers or whatever, every single thing. But at least what I'm saying is basic. It's just basic. Okay? So our time is up. I want to thank everyone for staying. You guys have stayed. I don't think anybody has left. Everybody has stayed from beginning to end. But what I want to say is that our next class will not be on Thursday. I would like to beg us, please, let's do it on Friday. Okay, please, let's have the next class on Friday because I will not be available. There's a meeting, a Lagos LG meeting that I'm supposed to part of on Thursday. So let's do it on Friday. Okay, so after Friday again, we'll meet again on Monday. We're going to start Revelation on Friday. Then we're going to finish it after 4 or so installments. All right. So I would like somebody to please close us out with a word of prayer. Who was the second person that arrived after Madam Crawford? I don't even know who is the second person. Just unmute yourself if you know yourself and lead us in a closing prayer. Or maybe I should call anybody. Nobody knows. Madam Crawford, who came after you?
I think it was Shewan Yegunle. I met him here. I met you.
Okay.
I met Auntie also.
Okay. Shewan, are you here? Shewan is still here. Shewan, I'll mute and pray for us. I know that Shewan is taking his baby to hospital. All right. Okay, Shewan is not here. Let's ask Father Miche. Your picture just came up now. So let's ask Father Miche to please close us out with the word of prayer. Father Miche, can you unmute? All right. Rotimi Awaye, you are there?